Hello and welcome to GeekVerse SideQuest, your weekly stop for video game news and reviews and more, video game news, reviews and more on the GeekVerse network. I'm your host, the Abyss Watcher, Dylan Muss, and today I have two guests. One coming back from, he appeared last week, he's back again. Travis Snell, how are you doing today?
I am doing very good. I said last week I wouldn't be here for this episode. I was going back and forth, and lo and behold, I'm here, and I'm excited to talk about that in my opening because the hype got to me, Dylan's messages got to me, and was it a good idea to buy this game? I don't know. We'll find out, but I am here, so...
Yes, the hype for Elden Ring is like, I don't know when the last time a game has been this hyped. It's been a while, and... joining us to also talk about this is making his podcast debut. If you've watched the 24-hour streams, if you have kept up on your GeekVerse Gauntlet, you might know this man, but he is here to talk about this game. Tyler Sayers, how you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Excited to talk some Elden Ring.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're finally making an appearance. I mean, I've known you for years and years and years, but I've never quite had you on. But we bonded deeply over Dark Souls 3 at one point, so I think this is the perfect time to bring you on.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's weird. It's usually the other way around where people go on the podcast and then they're in Gauntlet, but I think Cyrus might be the first doing the different, whatever, like the switcheroo, But yeah,
That's
you've
true.
seen him on there. He's a 3-time team champion, so he's been popping around, so...
Yeah,
He's good at video games. Remember we did like a Dark Souls speed run in the Gauntlet? Were you in that as well?
That part of my opening, he was. It was
Yeah.
him, Ruben, and
okay, right.
Saris. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I think I won that one.
He did win that. It was his
Yeah.
debut, and he won it. Yeah, it was very impressive because it's one of these things that they couldn't decide on the 3 games, and I think it's the only time it's been done. But it's like, well, let's decide this in a speed run, and that was actually the first time I ever saw any sort of Dark Souls, Demon Souls in my life. And I'm like, this game doesn't look like it's for me. But yeah, that was, and he did get that W in his first match.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, they've come a long way. Let's get some plugs out of the way. Thank you to Taylor for doing the thumbnails. He also did this beautiful background if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the SideQuest feed to get the video game focused content. Out of Mana is up there now, the newest episode Out of Mana, and you can find all the SideQuest episodes there. Join our Discord to chat with us and others in the community about anything. And this week it's been a lot of Batman talk, but there's always a lot going on. You can head over to our Patreon, join that to get episodes early and ad-free. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Thank you to Amanda, who does the music. Saris, have you heard the music that she did?
I have, yeah. I heard it when it was in the works.
Yeah, you were there in the studio, just
In the
sneaking
stew.
in.
Yeah, just
Like,
rubbing my
add some
hands
drums
together.
in there.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Next week's episode is going to be a Triangle Strategy review, and I'm going to have Dante on that episode, and I'm going to spoil his thoughts on Elden Ring. He's told me this might be his favorite game of all time. So I think we'll talk about Elden Ring some more next week. So yeah, if you have any questions, thoughts, topics about Elden Ring or Triangle Strategy, be sure to get those in, and I'll include that in next week's episode. And the last thing I wanted to shout this out. So normally we will talk about news, but it's just been so many big games
Big
coming out
ones
that,
right now.
Yeah, the news has kind of been sidelined. We're just focusing on the reviews. Last week there was kind of a bigger thing, but I'm glad we cut it because me and Travis talked about 3 hours for Horizon, so I think it worked. But Nintendo announced that they're going to be cutting off the stores for the 3DS and the Wii U, and they said it's going to happen like March 2023, so you have a lot of time. But there's a disclaimer to that if you don't have your 3DS or Wii U account connected to your Switch account, you can only buy things until this May, so like a couple months from now. I didn't know that. I just assumed my accounts were connected, but they are in fact not. But I went and connected them, so now I can get stuff until next March, so a lot of time. So if you're in the same boat as me, like Travis, you might be in that same boat as well. I don't know if you care or plan to get anything on 3DS, but
No.
you should definitely connect your accounts. That way, you have a year, and if you decide, actually, I did want this thing, then you're not shit out of luck. So I don't know, just a PSA for the people out there.
There you go. Perfect.
And with that, let's get right into Elden Ring. No news today. I want to start by talking a little bit about our history with the series. And I'm glad, I think we have a good panel for you here today because we'll start with Travis. You have played 0 of these games. You never played a From Software game, not even a single minute in Dark Souls or anything. So you're coming in just completely fresh.
Yeah, like I said, I'd heard this was back, and that match was probably like 2016, 17, somewhere where you guys did that three-way. And I had heard of these games, never really saw them, just heard that they were very punishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I see them play it, and I was like, man, this thing just looks a little janky, looks very arcadey, just like doesn't look for me. And then when I hear that, oh, there's not much story to them really, and they're very punishing, it's like, yeah, I just don't think I'm ever going to touch these at all. So I've had literally zero experience. Even the times where it popped up in Gauntlet on our 24-hour stream, I've been in another room, I've been doing stuff. So I went into this game completely blind. Like, pretty much, I am a Souls virgin. And as Dylan knows, though, the reason I got this because I was like a little disappointed at first when I kept seeing the trailers. I was like, man, this world looks great. These creatures look great. Like everything looks great, but I just don't know if I can really get. Like, am I gonna like the play style? And I went back and forth, as you know. 7 days ago, I'm like, I'm not getting it. I'm just not gonna get it. I got Horizon, but there was
it's been a roller coaster for sure in the Discord chat of like, I'm getting it, I'm not getting it.
It has been.
Those reviews.
Yeah, and the reviews. It's the second best reviewed game of all time. It's just one of these that I wanted to, and I thought if I'm ever gonna try a Souls game or this type of game, I should try one that I was already at least interested in. Right, the other ones I hadn't been, but this one I was like already interested in the open world. And yeah, that's do you want me to leave it there? Just my experience of
yeah,
Souls?
we'll leave it there for now.
So yeah, completely new, first time ever playing a game, and that was Elden Ring this week.
And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, Saris. So I think you've played, like, I don't know if you've played Demon Souls, but you've played the Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne, and Sekiro. So Bloodborne, I don't know if you actually, I know you started it. Did you go back and finish it at some point?
You know, I started it like years ago, maybe when we were at the Custardome, and I don't remember how far I got, but it wasn't really clicking with me. And then
Well, I think you started it and then you like moved like a couple weeks later or something.
Right.
Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah, that could be what happened.
So you just didn't have access to the PlayStation at the time. Yeah.
So I did come back, yeah, because it was yours that I was using.
Yeah.
So when I moved, I didn't have it, but I did come back to it later, and I actually think I got to the last boss and then just didn't beat it. Not because I couldn't, but just because I don't even know, like it was a few months and I was like doing other stuff and I just kind of like fell out of it. But
that's funny.
So I played it, I could say, but yeah.
Well, I know you recently finished Sekiro, and then you've played and completed the Dark Souls trilogy. You haven't played Demon Souls, right?
I haven't played Demon Souls, no. That's the only one I haven't played. But yeah, I love Sekiro. I love the first one I ever played was Dark Souls 2.
Right.
Which is, kind of regarded as the worst one, but
yeah.
I mean, I really loved it.
It's the awkward middle child for sure.
It is. It is
of the trilogy.
So yeah, I didn't. Big fan.
I didn't prep you for this, but I just want your very quick like tier list or ranking of the games. Like, what's your favorite? What's your? I think you like them all, but like, what is your what is your order of the games?
Oh man, well, honestly, the only one that I would put at the bottom would be, just in hindsight, is Dark Souls 2. If you're not counting the DLC, because the DLC is amazing. And then I would probably say, so from the bottom up, which is a weird way to do it, but so Dark Souls 2, I'd say, and then Dark Souls 1. One is a great game, but like it's a bit dated, and the graphics aren't as good. The enemies aren't as like sick, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, there's parts that are also just unfinished, like admitted by the developers. Like, this is not a finished area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sekiro, I really like the gameplay, but it's so different, right? It's kind of hard to compare it. And then obviously Dark Souls 3 is just beautiful, and like it's amazing gameplay. I kind of rank Sekiro, Dark Souls 3, and like so far in Elden Ring, kind of like on the same tier.
Ooh, okay. Where does Bloodborne fit in there?
Bloodborne.
I haven't quite finished it, but
below those, personally.
Okay.
Like above Dark Souls 1, but below the rest of them.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like that's maybe not I feel like most people put Dark Souls 1 just like in the God tier, or like Bloodborne as well. But then again, Sekiro won like Game of the Year a bunch of times. Like, all these games are great. Even Dark Souls 2 that gets shit on is still like just a better game than most.
I mean, it's what got me into the series. Like, it's still a great game, just comparatively.
So, and then as for myself, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle because I've had a up and down relationship with these games over the years. I've always wanted to try them. I remember back in the day, Briggs, like before Souls was just like the biggest thing on the street, like Briggs was, blowing that horn. He was talking about Dark Souls 1, so he convinced me to get it. And I played for like a couple hours and I'm like, this is hard. I don't like this. This feels very clunky. This is bad. So I put it down, and then really when it finally clicked for me was Dark Souls 3, and that was kind of an era where me and Saris and our third roommate Clinton, we just like all were playing it at the same time, and it was like a 2-month period where we are all just playing through the game. We all had different play styles and builds and level of experience, and that was just such a great time. Not just my playthrough, but watching you guys do all these bosses too, or take these different routes, or Clinton, spamming his magic. I'm like, I didn't use magic at all. This is so interesting to see like the difficulty change here.
1159.
Yeah, the 1159. I'll share that story another day, but that's just a legendary story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was the one that really clicked for me, and I love that game. Played through all the DLC. I think I put like a good 80 hours into it, and it's one of my favorite games of all time now. And then I went to Bloodborne like a week or two after Dark Souls 3, and I think I just went there too soon. I needed to give myself some more time to breathe, to just let it sink in, but I went there too soon. So played like a few hours of Bloodborne, a few hours of Dark Souls 2, but they didn't really click with me. And then Sekiro, I put like a good 10, 12 hours in, but then kind of bounced out as well.
You haven't done Sekiro to completion?
No, absolutely not.
Wow, that's surprising.
About 10, 12 hours. I'm awful at parrying. Like in all of these games, I've never been able to figure it out, and that game like requires it for like pretty much requires it. So I think that's maybe why like it was just so hard for me. Yeah. And then here we are with Elden Ring. So I've kind of played all of them except for Demon Souls, but only really beat one of them. I guess I should say this too. I went back to Dark Souls 1 in earnest and put like a good 40 hours into it. But like I said, there's some parts in that game that are just fucking horrible. So I just bounced at Crystal Caves. I'm like, I have no interest in continuing this game. This is bad. This is bad design here.
That boss run is terrible.
It's awful. So there you go. We have like a nice gamut of Souls fans, newbie, a pro, and someone in the middle. I guess just very basic technical stuff. I'm on Series X. I think you are too, Travis.
Yes.
And Sarah's, you're over there on PS4.
PS4, yeah.
How is it running on PS4? How are load times and like frame rate and all that?
It's great. It's great. Cool. I mean, a lot less complaints than what I've heard some PC users are having.
Yeah. I guess that's another PSA just for people who are thinking about picking up some PC. There's been a lot of issues, so maybe wait. And then also for myself, if like Xbox has had a lot of issues with the internet connectivity, at least for me.
I've had that at multiple times when I play. It's like you're not connected, not working.
For the first 2 days, I couldn't connect at all, and then it's kind of been on and off since then. And then they did some maintenance last night, but it still wasn't working today. So if you're big into the co-op, maybe wait a bit, and then they'll certainly get that figured out at some point, which is weird. I mean, they've done so many of these games that have similar online. I don't really know what their issues are, but I mean, I guess when you release to all these platforms at once, and the current gen as well as last gen, is you just have a lot more versions of the game to kind of cover. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about this game. So I want to know just a little bit about like your characters, because I always get into a character when I play these games. I come up with some goofy name, and I kind of have, so you always have your play style. Then also like your outfits you're wearing, like they all kind of have the same stats. So it's kind of like what kind of style. So Travis, for you as a newcomer, just what do you think, and like what kind of character are you playing?
So first of all, I just love that was an ability. I love anytime I can go crate and stuff like that. So I chose a bandit. I wanted to, because my idea was I didn't know, because of how tough I've heard these games are, how much I wanted to fight right away. So I wanted someone that could really sneak, and if I had to get out of a situation, I had the right, I could slither around so I did that. My character's name is Vengeance, in honor of Batman coming out this week.
Badass name. I like that.
You can't see it right now because my hair it's I dyed it black. Sarah, you haven't seen me since then, but pretty much he's like a makeshift version of me and Robert Pattinson. He's pale white, his face is scarred, he has black hair and he has red eyes, and he was just outcasted. He's always been a loner, but he's looking to save this land, and he's looking for vengeance. So that's my guy. But yeah, and usually I'm always a warrior, a hero, stuff like I'm always a fighter, but I changed everything up. Like, okay, this is a different type of game. So, and yeah, he has like the general costume that comes with he has the rags, and he has like I think what sold it for me was like he has the bandana around his face like just above his eyes, and it's very much like
Nice.
there's a shot in Batman like so like okay, this is perfect. So yeah, Vengeance the Bandit is my guy I'm rocking right now. So
How many hours do you have, or do you know what level your character is?
oh, I should have looked at the overall level. I'm somewhere between like 15 and 16, and then my levels. Oh man, I can't remember. I'm spending, I think, about over 5,000 per skill
Okay.
point right now. So that's where I am. If that
So
helps,
maybe in
out.
like the 20s, like mid 20s.
Somewhere
or
there,
so?
like a 24, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So
And Saris, how about you? I remember back in Dark Souls 3, you had a character named Big Kickin', and he was just this man who ran around with a scythe. And I think Big Kickin' is really what got me into Dark Souls 3. So who is Big Kickin' returned, or do you have a new character that
No,
you're playing as? In
it's
Elden
it's
Ring?
the last Jobin,
The last Jobin.
the
All right.
final Jobin. Me and Amanda made him together, and
Okay.
we honestly he doesn't look very remarkable. He kind of looks like an anime character. He has like some sick ass pink hair with like
There you go.
spiky braids or whatever they do.
Yeah.
But we spent a long time in like the character select screen, just like amazed at the customization.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And especially
They
with Amanda,
definitely
because
ranked
she
it up.
doesn't. Yeah, dude, she doesn't play video games. She was like, "How can you like? How is this possible? Like, there's so much customization in the characters." And but other than that, it looks pretty normal, to be honest. I always do the same kind of build in these games, where it's like I go hard on the strength early, and then I balance it out with dex to make it a quality build.
Okay.
So right now I'm just like pumping that strength basically. Just
Nice.
no shield, just two-handing a big ass sword and just
Oh,
rolling everywhere.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's what I
I
do.
think. And what level are you, and how many hours, if you know that stuff?
Well, I actually just looked at it before I came. So I'm 11 hours in, and I'm level like 25 or something. I spent the first. Well, I can get into this later if we talk about like our paths that we took.
You sure? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
I'm about level 25, I'd say.
nice. As for myself, my character's name is Vil Jewel, who actually started out as a Mii fighter that I use in Smash. And
Fucking Vil
he's
Jewel,
this
dude.
man who has
I
like,
hate
he has like
Vil
a
Jewel.
golden staff and like a red dress, like this full headdress, and this cheesy little smile where you can see like a little bit of his tooth hanging out. And yeah, he's just a Mii sword fighter. And I was like, I don't know, I want some more depth to Vil Jewel, so I brought him in to Elden Ring. So here he's a draconian anti-hero. I picked the hero class, but I think he's more of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
So he's just got like dark gray skin. He's very scary. He's quite muscular. And yeah, I really took into like the playstyle that you use, Saris, and I've gone a lot of strength. There's a couple weapons that I'm like, I just want to wield this. It might have 40 strength, but I'm fucking getting there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm just like rocking big two-handed weapons. Primarily, I'm using this right now. I'm using this like executioner's axe. So I'm just and often I'll run around just in my loincloth and nothing else, so I can have the quick roll because it's so heavy. So I'm
Yeah.
just this naked gray dude just running around chopping people up with an executioner's axe.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. I'm really liking the playstyle because yeah, my startup time on my attacks is pretty big, but they deal so much damage. It feels so good, and I have one of the talismans I have on it gives me like better jump attacks, and I'm pretty much just always jumping in and slicing people with this giant axe.
I actually really like that mechanic, the
Yeah.
jumping, because
It
that
really
wasn't in it.
improved, like, because you could like run and jump in dark, but it was so stupid.
It was
like, it just
super
never
janky.
felt good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the more can you have better movement mechanics, and you can actually crouch and sneak around in this game. So
Yeah.
that's my character. I'm just under 20 hours in now. I can't stop playing this game, man. The first night I played for a few hours, I'm like, okay, I'm good. But then since then, I can't put the game down. It's like late. I'm like, I gotta go to sleep, and I want to beat this boss. And I'm level like 42 now, so I'm pretty up there. I've been playing a lot. Been grinding. Well, not really grinding, but just going to different areas and all that. So yeah, I want to start with Travis as the newcomer. What do you think about this game? Because I remember when I first played Dark Souls, I'm like, this game is clunky as fuck. And I think it still has that DNA, although it gets a little bit better with each game. But yeah, what do you think about this game so far?
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it, because like I said, I thought that when I saw it, and then even when I had my hands on it, it's just like, because we played some with Horizon last week where you have this weapon wheel and you have like, oh, this button does this, like you have 60 different, oh, this arrow does this, you charge this up, blah, blah, blah. This is very, It's a very hard game, but it is very basic at its core of you got
Yeah.
these 4 buttons, and go. It's like technically you could probably defeat any boss you want if you have the best timing in the world. You could be a little slow. Timing and patience, but it is when I started playing it, I was just like, man, it feels like I said when Scandia, I can't remember what it is. There's some arcade game where you play as wizards and stuff like that, and it felt kind of like that. So, but a good thing is I had that idea going in, and yeah, I was wondering if I'd kind of have a different opinion. I think I kind of get the same thing with you guys. I can believe Dante when he says it might be one of his favorite game, because this is up there for me already. I don't obviously I have tons and tons to go still, but I don't think there is. I see the layout of the game and the path, and I don't see there being any con coming up that would bring it down. This to me is kind of like what I've had with KOTOR, what I have Metal Gear Solid, what I have Witcher. As far as the first few hours, like, okay, I'm enjoying this. It was the next day when I did a huge playthrough. I was hooked from every little thing. We talked about this last week with Horizon, where you could have all these skill points and they mean nothing to you. Man, early on, just especially a guy who's never played one of these, those runes meant everything to me. Though, that's why I went with the bandit. I was so happy to if I got to get it out of a situation, I'm sneaking out of here, because I just held on to them so much. And there's just things like once you learn I can sell these golden runes, and I just had fourth. I'm like, oh my god, I feel so powerful. It is a game that it feels very rewarding. I will say this though, for maybe new people that. And I'm going to do this on a Games Pass or something, go back and play some of these older games. I think for me, and maybe people that like myself haven't played these, I think this is a bit more accessible as far as you have those hard boss battles. You have moments where it's just, I spent an hour and 15 minutes on one guy just because I knew I had enough to beat him, but you just got to time certain things right. And that fucking horse, I'll get into it later, but you just got to time certain things. And what I like is you can do that, but then you can go off and explore for about 30 and 40 minutes and actually still be upgrading your character, learning all this new stuff, where some games it just feels like, oh, I'm just trying to upgrade just because I have to get the next part. All the upgrading, all the leveling up feels natural. It feels very fun. And that's where, I don't know, the old games, if it's more linear, where it's lots of boss battles, lots of fight back to back. I love that I can have this exhausting battle, but then I could spend 2 hours of just roaming the world, boosting myself up. And that's the biggest thing why I got the game, was the exploration and the world. And man, this is one of the best ways. We talked about on After 9 where Carl was saying oh, there's no icons, just where do you go? This is something that I didn't even really know I needed, especially with Horizon. We talked about this last week, where there's thousands of icons, and icons I'm not really interested in doing. I'm like, okay, I know this is fun and it's well made, but it wasn't pulling this. I have a list of so many things I want to do, and it's just in an area, and I've covered maybe only 25% of the map, and that means not done, just I've run around with my horse there, and everything you brought up, Dylan, this game is a master of detouring, but in the best way. All these little things I want to go back, and some of the best moments are you getting bopped by a silver knight, and then you coming back 10 hours later and kicking the shit out of him and being like, yeah, look who I am now, I got a helmet with a feather now, motherfucker.
Vengeance, yeah,
on vengeance. Literally, I'm excited to, this is one of these type of games that you could buy and you wouldn't have to buy another game for the whole year, because there's so much content in it. But I can't wait to get to the end of it and see where it ranks. But this honestly probably is for sure a top 10 game for me, maybe top 5, because I've just, like you said, it's addictive. The second I put it down, you just think of 5 things you want to be doing while you're not playing it. All weekend, I was not being able to play it, and I thought about this goddamn dungeon that I just wanted to get back to. And then I got back and I did it. It took a few hours, but yeah, I can't say enough. And that's why I'd say for people that are scared, just try it out. But it's one of these things where I think the open world does help you. It does, I think there's some stuff. The only cons is as far as learning, there are a few things that I had to look up, didn't teach me how to sprint. I had to look that up, and there's no hour of this is what you're going to be doing. Here's your tech. You just got to go. So I think that can be a little tough for new people, but if you have a phone or a guide, you can help that stuff out pretty quickly. I didn't look at bosses and stuff, but for little stuff okay, what do I do with, how do I use of Ash of War? Because you just pick it up and just you have this now. But
Man, how to two-hand a weapon, I was like, I have no
Yeah.
idea how I'm supposed to two-hand
I
a
only
weapon
learned that
in
from
this
this
game.
from the loading menu. I was like, oh,
That's
how you
convenient.
do it.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
had to look it up.
So like I have little things like that, but honestly, I thought it was going to be a good game because I've heard so much praise going into about the franchise, but I still don't know how I feel. But I'm absolutely loving it. But like I said, with the caveat of I think how good the open world is really helps as well because I'm a big open world guy, and this comes from a guy that they have some story stuff. Sure, is written by George R. R. Martin, but not much. It's more the lore that's cool. There's no they give you a 30-second blurb of what it's about, and that's your story, you know. So, but I'm loving it.
Yeah. Sarah, let's go to you next. This is, feels very mechanically just like Dark Souls 3 for me. Obviously, there's new stuff added on, but just the basic movement and whatnot. Well, you got an open world. How do you feel about this game so far?
I mean, to build on Travis's point of like if people have never played these types of games before and they're a bit like weary of joining it, I will say that if you're interested at all, this is the game to start with because it is the most accessible. There's tons of like little quality of life things that make it more accessible. And me playing all of them, like I've definitely noticed that. It's a bit weird because it's the same engine as Dark Souls 3 or probably around that. It feels like it, but it's like they added so many movement options with your horse and with jumping in general that it's like it feels like a mod to Dark Souls 3 almost, which is a
Right.
great thing. Like they just add a bunch of new little things that make it more enjoyable and easier for new people to come in but like still retaining that classic Dark Souls feel.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great, if you're wanting to get into these games, like no question, this is the one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm so glad to have Travis on here because I feel like most reviews out there are going to be like, for huge Dark Souls fans just gawking about the game, but like it's important to have a newcomer on a review like this, and yeah, I mean, I think that's what I was going to ask Travis. Is just like I've always found like the items really confusing, just like what this thing does.
Oh, yeah.
Or I pick up like this venerable old soul, like what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? But and like the game sometimes explains things and sometimes it doesn't. But it sounds like just that basic minute to minute stuff is like well explained enough for you.
Yeah, and I think the good thing with the items, for me, it's more just like how I would get it in weapons or my equipment, like just little stuff like that. I do like that if you select an item, this where I felt very Knights of the Republic, and you hit details, it'll tell you exactly what it does, and especially because there's so many times in games I'll pick up, Golden Rock. Is this Golden Rock a quest thing? Is this for me to sell? Do I need this to craft something? And I like it'll say for crafting, for merchants, for like those little details really help. Where there's some stuff in the game where it doesn't really hold your hand, but those details I think for the most part is really good. Like I said, Ashes of War doesn't tell me what I should. Like I figured that out eventually. By that one, I did do Google search because I'm like, where do I do this? Do I do that? The thing like even before like you have to go to a certain number of grace sites before you can start using these runes. I was like, what the fuck am I doing with these runes? Like I know I'm supposed to upgrade. Like how am I doing? So I think like even if you could give one little blurb at the same time, you find that out by yourself, right? So it does kind of. I feel like this game is very much like Frodo and Fellowship of the Ring. The first time you leave the Shire, you don't exactly know what you're in for, but you're always in awe and you're still questioning stuff. And that's how I feel, where you don't really know, but then you have some wise people telling you stuff. So I like that with the items, that it tells you specifically maybe what the skill is, or if, like I said, what you're going to use it for. Because I could have sold something accidentally that this merchant's like, yes, thank you for selling this great sword, So
there is a ton of information, but in my experience, like it might not give it to you directly, but it is there. It like you can figure out anything. Like for example, if you didn't know how to sprint, like you can go into the game controls and it'll tell you how to sprint in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And like people that you just run into will tell you what these items do, or like like it's always there. You just have to look for it, which I think makes a lot more immersive.
Couple of solid hours of no sprinting. I was just like, I guess this is as
Just
fast as my guy
walking
could go.
around.
Yeah, and that's what me and Dylan were talking about once I got the horse. And this was before I knew I could sprint. And I was like, man, yeah, because if I would have had to walk around this map, I would have been pissed. But then I was just riding the horse all the time. But now I'm fully sprinting. I'm a runner,
Yeah. There's like I was one night I was playing the game just along with Dante and a couple other friends, just chilling on Discord, all playing the game, doing our different stuff. And we were just talking about mechanics. I was like, man, is there a way like on your horse to attack on the left side of the horse? And they're like, yeah, you just hit like left bumper. I'm like, oh, that actually makes so much sense. But I just, that normally that's the block button or the parry button or something. So I just didn't think to do it. But then once you actually figure out, it's like that just feels amazing and works really well. Sarah, do you have any more kind of just overall general thoughts, or I get just as like the open world aspect is kind of the biggest new thing for you. So how's that hitting you so far?
It's insane. Like I can't I'm 11 hours in, and I initially went on the path that like the grace tells you to go. So I hit Margit, and I'll talk about that later. But then after Margit, I went back and like I haven't left Limgrave. I'm still on that
Yeah.
South Island. Like,
Yeah.
it's because when I play these games in any game, like I explore everything. I leave no stone unturned. So this game is super daunting to me because there's so fucking much to
Yeah.
do, and it's like I feel like I have to do it, but I'm gonna be like 100 hours in and be like halfway through the game, honestly.
Nothing wrong with that. That's great.
No, but it takes time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I am just absolutely in love with this game. I can't put it down. I'm in the same boat where as soon as the game's off, I'm just like thinking about it. Oh, I had this idea. I want to go try this thing out. I like that there's no like quest log in this game, so I just have my notebook here and I'm just writing down quests and names and things that like seem important that I might not get again, or I don't want to have to go back and talk to this person who tells me like 2 random lines about some like daughter he had like 20 years ago, just like this random shit. And I love that. It's just reminding me of some of my. It's taking parts of like my favorite games. Like the exploration just reminds me a lot of Morrowind. When I first saw the compass in this game, I was a bit concerned. I felt like that maybe can take away from the exploration in a lot of games if you can just see all these things on your compass and you end up you follow that rather than like just the world where it's taking you. The compass does not really do much. In fact, I want to turn it off, but I can't really find
it
a way.
It shows you where your runes are when you drop them. That's like the only thing I've figured out that they
That's
do.
Actually a good point. That's because that's pretty helpful to
and
have.
if you place a way
normally
marker,
I know where my runes are anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you can utilize it like how you want if you're placing your own markers and stuff.
And I don't think you can just turn the like you'd have to turn off the whole HUD, including your health and stuff. So I'm obviously not going to do that. But yeah, anyway, like I'm just getting lost. I'm just stumbling into this random cave, and then this cave isn't just like this 5-foot cave that has like some item in it. It's this like 15 to 20 minute long adventure where I just get lost and I keep going deeper and deeper. And then sometimes you pop out of this cave and you're a completely different part of the open world, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, where am I right now?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's reminding me of Morrowind in that way, and also just like the nebulous nature of these quests and how you're just getting strange instructions or no instructions at all, but just enough to give you some ideas of like, oh, maybe I could try this thing out. It's reminding me a lot of Outer Wilds, and some of the places in this game are wild. Like Limgrave is like kind of a New Zealand-esque sort of landscape, but man, there is some wild places in this game that just like have blown my mind. Like I'm sitting on my couch just like floored by, right, that doesn't make sense, sitting on my couch floored, one of the two. I'm just like completely mind blown by some of these locations that I'm finding.
Man, like I said, I haven't left Limgrave yet besides to go to Margit. So like I'm super excited to I haven't seen anything yet.
Well, even just in Limgrave, like you might just walk into this temple, and then this temple turns into this whole like rigmarole of other things, and just like this never-ending chain. Yeah. The combat, the game feel is just like Dark Souls 3, which obviously for me is great, with just improvements. Yeah, like I love jumping around and slicing people. That feels so good, where it was so clunky before. And
there's tons of quality of life improvements.
Yeah, like the horse. I'm excited to talk about the horse. And then also just in that same way of like these mysteries where you just get this one line, or maybe even just see this thing, like there's these kind of like half moon crescent things that are, I've seen them in a few spots. I'm like trying to figure out what that means, if it means anything at all. And like in that way, it just reminds me of Spelunky. It's the same thing where you just get like one random line, or maybe it's just some piece of artwork on the wall, and you're like, hey, what does this mean? Like, what can I do with this? So, I mean, those are some of my favorite games, and this game is just kind of taking my favorite parts of all those and innovating it. And man, this is what I want from an open world. I just want to get lost. I don't want to have to worry about all these quests or just see all this shit on my compass. Like, just that castle looks cool. I want to go over to that castle.
Yes.
And then I go over to that castle and I get fucked up by some guy, and then I cruise around and I end up hanging out there for 2 hours, trying to, fall off every roof I can to get onto any other ledge. Like, it's just so much fun. Their level design is amazing. The open world design is amazing. The combat's great. There's like, dude, I'm like, 20 hours in? I've fought like maybe 20 bosses. Like, there is so many bosses in this game, and obviously there's a lot more that I have to do. Like, there's just there's a lot going on. So I'm in love with this game, and I can't wait to play more. And I'm already thinking about my second character because I really want to try out the magic, but I'm just so strong. My muscles are so big that I have no more room for brains. But
Yeah.
I can't wait to do another playthrough in this game. And that's one thing with the tutorial too. Like this little part where you go down, you fight this little boss. Like that whole thing, you can just skip right away. I think so. You know, playing a second character, like you're just immediately. I guess you probably get fucked up by that grafted scion, that like spider in the beginning, and then you're pretty much just like in it. So that'll be cool for replayability, and I think this is a game I'll do a lot of different builds in. And man, I just can't wait to get back in there.
What blows my mind is like with how big the world is. There's so many just little tiny, like you said, like it's a little cave and then it turns into something and it's completely missable, like so easily you just walk past it. And how much effort they put into these places that are just like who knows how many of them are in the game in total, and they're just like completely optional, like so easily missed. And there's these like beautiful bosses that are under there. It's crazy.
Well, 100%. I was gonna say because I had that too, where there was like a broken down temple, but I was completely playing on the other side of it, and it's just a smaller one. But then once I went to the other side, there was like a whole war going on between like these soldiers and like these dead things. But I was in this area for about hour and a half, had no idea until okay, I'm gonna take this route, and it was just a couple miles over a hill. But this was going on, and that was so fascinating. Where it's like, okay, I got these ghouls on one side, I got a big troll here, and then when I turn the corner, like okay, it's gonna be open path. Just this war going on, and that's where it's just like all open world games kind of have that, like make your own adventure, but like that does it always apply? Rarely does it actually apply because you can to an extent, but there is always a main quest. We don't talk about this. The problem with open world games when it's like hey, your son's missing and you're going to do all this stuff. Even this has no story, but it's like you're just kind of saving the land, right? So it's like it doesn't really matter where you go because like you're always helping something, you're always killing something, you're always making something better, and you're kind of headcanon. And it does actually feel like you're making your own adventure. It's one of these type of games that is great, but it also worries me for future games that I play as like it's gonna ruin me a little bit because now I'm always gonna want like this type of open world. Just you get in and you go because like Dylan said, you can see something and if it looks interesting, you go to it. If it doesn't, you mark it on the map for later. If it looks too hard, yeah, I'm turning the other way and coming back. But I'll drop a marker and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Well, like, because once I played long enough, I would look at a guy and know, you know what, it's probably not going to go my way. I'm going to come back another time. And then when I come back, it's a whole new dynamic, especially even sometimes there's certain bosses that don't pop up in day and night, which is fun. So it does really feel like everybody is going to have a specific different story. I think I'm like Sarah's where I've stuck very similar just to Limgrave. I've been in like the bottom right corner of the map most of the game, but because I've always been transitioning my way up, but then 5 or 6 things bring me back and it just... That's why I don't feel pulled like, oh, I have to go this way. I have to do this. It's just things I want to do. And it makes it even better because I know, man, if I finish everything in Limgrave the next few days, it's like I got so much more to go into. And that's where I like too. I don't have this pressure of like, I know there's not much of like a main story, but there's not that either of like, oh, I have to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. It's kind of all up to you, whether it is the exploration, whether it is the story. Like for me right now, I'm just working on leveling myself up because I got a spell and it's shooting fire from my eyes. And it's like, you know what? I want to do that. So that's why I'm just working on my faith. And it's so funny because I had no faith points. I was not updating at all, but then it's like, yeah, I think Vengeance should shoot fire from his eyes. So I'm working on faith right now. And that's where my mission is like, I'm just going to stay around Limgrave. I know a couple like rune spots to farm a little, plus there's some bosses I haven't done, and it's like a great, like you said, Dylan, I don't have the log, but I have notes on my phone, like just a checklist or the markers is like, okay, this is a boss, but this is like a real bad boss, like it is so fun, like just they've created a world, but you're also kind of creating your own narrative in it, and it's just fascinating. Like I said, it's one of these that other games I think will try to copy for the next few years too.
I hope so. And you know, as for like main story stuff, I'm at a point now where I have really no idea what like the critical path or main route I'm supposed to do is. Like I cleared out this one area and I thought that would maybe lead to the next thing, but then I probably just got distracted and I could go back there and look around more. But yeah, truthfully, I have no idea what way I'm supposed to go to continue that main story. And I think that's great because then I don't feel guilty just cruising around doing whatever. So yeah, I hope that's something that games steal from this other open
That's something
games.
that that's like very Dark Souls-esque in general. Like usually the main story is that you like have to fight these big lords, whatever they
Yeah.
are, the 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
And then so like you go to one path and you fight them, and then that's just the end of it. And you kind of have to explore and go. You can choose to go anywhere else to find the other ones. And I think that's just going to be exacerbated in this game because it's so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great aspect of it.
So I guess we can get a little more spoilery with it here soon. I think, I mean, it sounds like we all recommend this game, and I think Travis is the best example if you're a newcomer, how this game, like, you know, he's talking about this being like maybe one of the all-timers and
It's definitely in a top 10.
10.
It's definitely top 10 for
crazy.
sure.
And this
Are you talking all? You're talking all time.
All
not
time,
like-
100%.
Nice.
I can just know it has that feel, like I said, like The Witcher, Red Dead. When you just know you've sunk in enough time where you're like, like I said, all my cons are just like little negative things. There's nothing really. There's certain games that I may put this above or put below just because like I am a story guy. So that's where it's like, okay, because the story's really good here. This is why it might be a little tick above, but it's definitely a top 10er because just it hits everything, and that's what even the clanky like game style that works because it feels. I said this in our Discord. It feels like judo was preparing me this for my whole life because judo is all about you're using your opponent's momentum against them, and that's very much lots of these fights where it's not you striking first. It's like it's a dance. They're leading, but you got to pivot at the same time. That's what I mean. Like literally, you could go with your weakest character, and you could take on the biggest bad guy in the world. Is it going to take you hours? Yeah, it could. There's a couple fights where I went, man, I should have backed off. But when I beat him, and it took, I was just hitting like 55. But I'm the difference. I've been actually trying to master the art of the shield. I will get in fight with little guys just to practice. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm doing my own tutorials. I'm not even like, here's your practice. I'm like, Cam, there's these 5 zombie dudes. They're swinging me slow, but I'm gonna work on it. And it's that stuff is good. It's like a chess game. So that's why I like that. Where if you're looking for the some big mainstream game as far as like a Batman or Spider-Man, where it's like, oh, here's your counter, here's this. I'd say maybe you could wait if you don't want to pay full price. Or another reason I'd only say wait if you feel like you don't have time for video games. Don't get this because it's not gonna be a small game. It's not a game like a one and done. Like, oh, I could finish it, plug away 20 hours, get the main story done complete. No, this is a game you'd want to enjoy. So I'd say like when you get time off or even like your next holiday, that if you're kind of back and forth, that's what I'd say the next time too is when you got time to really sink into it because every time I leave it, I want to get right back to it. So
you also can't just very easily pause in this game. So
no, which is frustrating as a parent.
You gotta, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like that kind of sucks. Because even if you like, what I did is just turn my Xbox into sleep mode. Like technically, that pauses me right in the middle where I was. But then when I load it back in, it's like you're not connected to the internet. Kicks you back to the main menu.
Exactly.
So be prepared for that. And then I guess just like maybe a very quick thing. Like people have always talking about the difficulty of these games. Like, why don't they add an easy mode and all that? And generally, I'm against that kind of thing. We won't get into that whole argument, but like I think Travis just said, like using the shield a lot. There's a lot of built-in ways that just make this game easier, like using the shield or using lock-on in like certain fights.
Lock
just makes
on
them,
for
like,
sure.
Trivial if you're just like lock on and roll into their back, things like this. Like there's ways within the game and playstyle to make your experience easier. So I don't know. I would suggest like trying out some different play styles or use a shield. The shield is very helpful for a newcomer. I mean, some bosses will just fuck you up on your shield, but then once again, this is an open world game. So if things are difficult at the time, just go somewhere else. I guarantee
100%.
you there's 300 other things you could go do that are, appropriate for your level or your skill level. So yeah, I think this is a great game. Is there anything you guys want to say before we kind of go through the mist door and get a little bit more spoilery with it? And spoilers too are like, I don't really want to spoil things for you guys that you haven't seen yet, and
just
we're only so far
yeah.
in. So yeah, just to get it a little bit further.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say on the difficulty thing is I always was somebody like, man, I would love to try out these games if they were like maybe easy or whatnot because it's just my lifestyle and everything. But now that I've played one, I see. Now, I'm not this way with every game. I don't think like, oh, every game should just be hard. No, I think tons of games should have the option because if there is people, especially like myself, that may just play it, like if they just play Last of Us for the story, they can play story mode. They can have a fun time with things like that, especially some people's lives. They can only buy one video game a year, whether it's because of affording or time. So if they want an easy difficulty, then it's like I'm always for that. But with this game, I think not that it would take out the fun of it, but I do think it would. I think because that's where, like I said, it's easy and it's hard. because the controls are literally, you got a strong attack, light attack, shield, and roll. If you were to make that easy, I don't think that would be fun. I think it would just be way too, okay, you kill a guy, you move on. You kill a guy, move on. I think because it's hard, that's what makes it fun. I think something like a Spider-Man where you have 15 million gadgets makes sense in easy mode because you got to do this. You got to hit 3 buttons at the same time to make a web bomb. That makes sense to me. Where this, if you were to make the combat easy, the world's still there, the skill tree, not the skill tree, but just the leveling up, everything, the exploration. But if you were to make the combat easy, I do think that would take a lot of the fun out of that. And it would just be, I don't know, a night simulator where you're walking around, which maybe some people still want, but I do think for the enjoyment, I think this game particularly, I don't think you would need that difficulty now that I've played it at least. So
I 100% agree. Like this, I agree. Like not every game should be hard, but these games specifically shouldn't be easy because like thematically, it doesn't make sense for them to be easy. And so much of the enjoyment of the game is like getting your ass whooped by a boss, and then either like going back, getting strong, and then coming back, or like grinding it out and like learning the moveset and knowing the fight inside out, so you know exactly what to do. And that adds so much enjoyment to it, which just wouldn't be there if it could just turn on in easy mode.
Well, I think it's just people think it's easier than it is. Like some games it is, absolutely. But if you only modified like how much damage, enemies do or how much damage you take in a Dark Souls, like that wouldn't really fix the problem, because these people who can't figure it out or aren't willing to or just don't, have the skill or something like that yet, like that's not going to make the game easier. You can get hit more, and I guess that makes it a little bit easier. But I think realistically, like the best way to do an easier mode for this game would be like, okay, this boss, we're gonna take away these attacks that are really hard to read, or like fix the amount of frames that this hitbox is active for, and that's a fuck ton of work to do that for the whole game, especially with an open world game. Like fine tuning the balance of how easy and difficult things are across like every area and every enemy that someone could be fighting. I think it's a lot of work, and I just don't think it's really. I don't personally think it's needed. Now, obviously, there's like accessibility things. That's a different thing, but just in general, you can do this game. I believe. I don't know who you are listening, but you can do it.
You can definitely do it.
Yeah, might take you some time, but you can do it.
Yeah.
The shield is so much more viable, I found, in this game than the other game, purely because of the I forget what the technique is called, like shield break or shield bash or whatever, where you block an attack and then immediately strong attack.
Yeah,
like that adds so much viability to the shield. It's insane.
Yeah,
it makes enemies that like don't break your stance just like pretty trivial.
Definitely. Should we go through that mist door now and get a little bit deeper with the convo?
Sure.
All right, we'll take a quick ad break. When we come back, we're gonna keep talking about Elden Ring. So yeah, let's take a quick break. Okay, and we're back. I don't know where you got. Okay, here's where I want to start. I just want to praise this game for its horse mechanics. Okay,
100%.
Your horse's name is Torrent, and I don't know why every fucking game in the world, except for maybe Ghost of Tsushima, fucks up the horse mechanics so bad. It's always clunky. If you get near a ledge, it gets super glitchy, and you just can't go over this ledge. You lose all your momentum. Like Shadow of the Colossus has the worst horse mechanics of all time. But this game is like, oh my god, he moves on a dime. He's still like, if you're going in certain situations, you can't just immediately do a 90-degree turn. But if you're stopped, you can do quick turns. You can double jump and it feels great. You can do your light or strong attack on both left and right side. You can do your healing and stuff and all that. It's very easy. It just feels so good, and it's so quick to get on your horse too.
Yes.
I think that they just nailed it with the horse mechanics, and I hope every other game that ever has a horse just takes the code line for line from this game and plugs it into their game, because it is amazing, and I don't have a single criticism of it. It is fantastic, and I love that so much.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead, sir.
No, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say. So a few years ago, Breath of the Wild, the same. It was very similar dynamic where it came out during Horizon, lots of hype. I got it. Great game. I do enjoy it. But I got memed on quite a bit because one of my biggest cons in that game was the fucking horse. I couldn't stand, and it would ruin it sometimes. It just did not feel smooth. I was so happy to like echo everything Dylan said as far as that how a horse goes. It feels great. Especially in a game where you want to be exploring the world. If this horse sucked, man, it would really bring down the game. The only thing that's like a con for me, but that's just because probably my chubby fingers, is I hate that when you run in this this game, or when you like yeehaw when you run mount or whatever really fast, you're tapping B. And lots of games, you're just holding the left stick right where you're going. So many times where I'm in the middle of a fight, I'll like bump it accidentally and he'll just jump right off. Oh man, a boss has taken advantage of that many times so far in these past 12 or 14 hours, whatnot. But yeah, the horse overall really good, and it's much needed. Even though you can fast travel pretty much everywhere, it's one of these things that I enjoy because the horse is so good. You don't feel that need unless it's like, okay, way you just want to get to a store quickly or something. But it's smooth. It's very good.
Yeah, it's definitely really smooth. I will say I was skeptical of the horse just because I am so acquainted with Dark Souls, and I'm a bit of a purist. So I was like, what is this bullshit, a horse in Dark Souls? But it's absolutely needed just with how much open space there is. And if you had to run everywhere, that'd be a fucking nightmare.
Yes, 100%. That'd be a long. This would turn into like a 160-hour game versus an 80-hour game. You know.
When I went in that, I don't know what they're called, but they're like the wind gusts for the first time.
Yeah.
It shoots you. I was like, holy shit.
You go so high.
Oh yeah.
And your horse like nose dives upwards. And it's like, oh my god, this is so sick.
Yeah, they nailed it. I think, I mean, there's just a lot of fights that are really fun, and they just completely change like how you're interacting with the combat system when you're on your horse, because you're kind of having to weave in and out. It's fun to do against, like I did this. There's one, there's like those traveling troops where it's like those two big guys, and there's like maybe 20 dudes behind the cart, whatever, and they're kind of just traveling through. Like those fights are so much fun with the horse as you try and just like pick off stragglers or try and get a bunch of guys together so you can get a big swing. Or like certain bosses you're allowed to use their horse, and that's really fun. I mean, you don't have to. It's I don't think there's any that are mandatory horse riding, but I just love the combat of it, and even like a horse on horse battle. Oh, that feels great.
Dude, the tree sentinel on your horse, that first horse guy, it's just like jousters just having it at each other.
Awesome.
So sick.
And you kind of have a dodge-ish thing. It's like a sprint, but it also works as a dodge too.
Does it have iframes?
I feel like it does, but I could be at least might just maybe because it puts you so far ahead, but it feels like it probably has a little bit.
That's cool.
Yeah, all I gotta say is, if I get a boss battle where I got access to my horse, that boss is fucked. I've mastered this horse. There was one guy that I definitely feel like I should not have been beaten at this point, but I was like, I think I can do it. It's getting to. That was my very first boss ever, because I just want to beat a boss, because there have been a couple I had bought up to where it's like, this is just there. You're in a circle and all you have is a beast man with a huge axe. It's like, it's over for me. That was the first boss I ever bumped into, as this man named the Beast Man, and it did not go well. He was fucking scary as shit, and it did not go well for your boy. And I was like, okay, welcome to Elden Rings. But this first boss that I beat is because I had the sword, and not that I was cheesing him, but it was kind of in a way, because I had so much more versatility where, you may hit me and it might be an insta kill, but you can't hit me if I got this horse. And it took a while because there was a couple of hits, but like Sarah alluded to earlier, I had this whole strategy of taking him down, and I eventually just figured out, no, not go from side, go behind him. Literally, it was just to go face to face and outspeed him and get him. And once I figured out, it was so satisfying. And still after that, you still can get beat because some of these bosses are very powerful. But once I figured out, like, I had 3 separate strategies. Then when I figured out this last one, I'm like, okay, no, this is the one. And it took a while. That's the one where I wish I had a pause, because I would lose, and Gwen just goes, well, you got it. What do you say, Dad? You try again. And you're like, I know, but this guy, like, I can't do much. But man, if I get a boss battle with a horse, I usually can pull it off, like, depending on how high it is so far, because me and that horse, that sprint, the double jump, except one boss in particular, the double jump did not work. They just swapped me right out of the air, and it was not good. Insta kill too. But the horse, love it.
You can also do this thing, at least for me, with my Executioner's Axe, which is just super long. When I do my heavy attack on the horse, it like starts on the ground and I like slowly swing it up. And you can hold the heavy attack button, and he'll just let the axe scrape along the ground, and it makes that like cool sound. And then I just swing up and just do this huge, and I have to do it like so far in advance so I can actually hit the enemy. But it just feels so good. So that might be my favorite thing. I don't know. There's so many favorite things, but that's just. It makes the traversal great. It makes the combat have this extra layer. It's just such an amazing addition.
It puts you in the world, like what Travis was saying before, how he like went over this mound of earth and there was like a war going on. Like, if I'm thinking of the same thing, I like when I first got the horse, I found one of those, and I would just like pick a side of who I wanted to like be on, and then just attack the other guys and just
Yeah.
like horse away. And
Yeah.
it felt like it was so good.
Just sliding for the runes, oh, he's a little and then go,
Yeah.
I was doing, if it's the same thing, I was doing a 1-for-1. Okay, one soldier, one ghoul. I was keeping it even for him, and then just executed them all.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so good.
I guess, in line with that, we could talk a little bit more about the open world. Travis mentioned the time of day, and yeah, I've noticed that there's this one like, Nazgul like horse rider boss that seems to only pop up in the night.
That's
so
the one.
cool. Is
That's
that
my
the one?
first boss.
I haven't
yeah,
actually seen
the
that
Black
yet.
Cavalry. Yeah, fuck, he
Okay.
was a asshole to beat, but I got him. I took him off.
Nice.
How many? And there's a few times too where I lost just because a tree got in my way, and I was like, "Fucking tree!" My horse I would ridden right in a tree, and it was done. But yeah, that Black Cavalry was my first ever Souls Elden Ring boss that I ever took
Amazing.
down. Yeah,
Does he like roam? I haven't seen that yet. Does he like
He's-
roam around, or is he?
I
Just
think
in
he's-
one
he-
area specifically.
This one like bridge, he goes back and
Yes.
forth. And yeah, like so that's funny too because I saw him once at night and he fucked me up. And then I respawned and it was like daytime. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. So I didn't fight him again. So I still haven't beat that guy. And now that we talked about that, I totally forgot that I have to go back and fight him. So I'm gonna go back and get him next. But
You're gonna have to
like-
show me where that is because I want to see this guy.
yeah, you've
Yeah.
probably gone past it. You just probably went by it in the day, and
Yeah.
so you
Yeah,
didn't know.
probably.
But I'll go back in the map and find the ping for that.
And the good thing is it's right beside a site of grace. So if you die, you can jump right back into it. You can get back there. You can change the time of night. And that's what I was doing. Just back to night, back to night. And this night was probably like, oh, this fucking guy again. Here we go.
There's
But,
probably going to be a lot of stuff that's like only accessible at a certain time of day because they have that past time function at the Sites of Grace.
Definitely. Yeah, I have to say that's really the only one I've noticed so far, but I'm sure there's more to it, or like certain world stuff. I'm sure there's going to be like maybe this doorway is only open, at certain times of day.
So I got another one that I went back and I changed it to morning, afternoon, and night. I have not been able to come across him. He's this character called the Deathbird. I have not seen him again. I think it was maybe nighttime, but I changed it nighttime. I went all over. So I'm not sure if it's like maybe even the way I enter the world triggers something. Because at one point I was entering and it was a Deathbird. So all you hear is like, ah, and he's like, I don't even spoil, but he just is creepy looking. But then also like maybe 100 feet from him, there's a giant throwing huge spears at you. So you have this Deathbird on, you have this giant, but I took out the giant, and because the Deathbird, he's an actual like boss, where the giant was just a large enemy. And
Yeah.
I've tried to find the Deathbird again, and I haven't, because I went
Maybe
back.
he roams around. That'd be cool.
He might, because I went every time, because I felt like I went back to Limgrave at one point, and I was like, there was 5 bosses, and I've taken out all 4 out of the 5, and then the 6th is him, but I haven't found. But I went back like a motherfucker, just like, oh yeah, look at me now. I got a big sword, I got a turtle shield, I got so much going on. But yeah, I've not found the Deathbird again. So if you ever find him and find out how to find him, let me know, because me and him have a date. I got to take him out because he was
That's
scary.
interesting. It could
Yeah.
be story related. Like if you did other shit, maybe it deactivated him.
Yeah, maybe could be
somewhere
yeah.
else.
Because
Yeah,
I did.
maybe it's because you killed that knight on the bridge, and that was like his friend or something. So he's coming to get revenge on you. I
Well,
don't
it
know.
could be because there's like a tower, the giant, and the Deathbird, and I like moved from the Deathbird because I just knew he was gonna mess me up. But I took out the giant because as long as I stayed behind him and his feet, he couldn't see shit. There wasn't anything. I had my little sword that
Yeah.
did like 50 damage, but I took him out. So
Your little bandit's dagger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just that, just a poke. I have an
shit.
actual sword now that's like 100 damage, so we're doing good. Or 140. We're doing better now, but
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, and then so there's also weather effects, like the wind, for particularly in the main kind of what feels like the main story part. You're kind of going through. Is it Storm Vale or Storm Wind Castle? One of the two. I think it's Storm Vale.
Stormvale, yeah.
Yeah, and so when you go up there, it's like very windy, obviously, but that looks really cool with the leaves. Like they really nailed the visuals of that. And then there's like can rain, or there can be. I don't know if the thunderstorms are just like enemies that use lightning on you, or if it's like certain areas or during storms when lightning happens. I haven't been able to tell exactly, but I feel like just between the time of day, the weather effects, like there's a good amount of variety, and just even just that like Limgrave, the whole thing pretty much has the same sort of aesthetic to it before you go to these other areas. But with those things, it kind of adds some nice variety to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I haven't. I feel like I get a lot of daytime research. Just not sure if it's just because my sight of grace and getting runes and whatnot. But yeah, I love it anytime it rains, anytime in games. But this is nice. It's not overwhelming. It just has a nice calm fog to it. And yeah, I like any game that has a day and night cycle because you can just add a little bit to it. And plus, this game just the way it's using it as far as things pop up. It's very back in the day Majora's Mask sort of way. Where that was that was the first game I ever remembered having that moment like, oh, it's nighttime and things are different. This has that already with bigger bosses and whatnot. So,
Cyrus, I'm curious what you think about the stealth in this game. So you can crouch around. There's the classic tall grass that you can sneak around in.
I love it.
But it feels to me different than other games. Like if you get found out, at least from Travis, sounds like you're kind of sneaking away from things. But it sounds like once you get found out, you're kind of there's not much you can do to get back into stealth, or it feels like enemies have more like better line of sight than other games where if like they can logically see you, it seems like they usually do. But I'm also not really, I feel like the first few hours I was doing a lot of stealth and now I'm not really doing it as much. But yeah, Sarah, what do you think about the stealth mechanics?
Well, I think it's a great kind of mixture because there typically isn't that much stealth in Dark Souls. And just the fact that I just finished Ghost of Tsushima, so obviously there's tons of stealth in that game, and I thought it was actually a great mix of the fact that you can act like in Elden Ring, you can actually go into tall grass, and it makes a difference in your visibility.
Yeah.
Because I thought that would just be like, I was kind of expecting it to just be like not a mechanic and just it to be visual or something.
Sure.
But I think it adds a great option because you can just sneak around and like backstab people, and it just adds like, it doesn't take away anything from the game. It just adds this new play style that you can have.
Yeah. I still feel like this is a complaint I've had with all the games, but sometimes backstabs just don't work the way they should. I feel the same way here. I'm like, I clearly am getting a backstab on this guy, but I just
what sword are you
not
using
getting the
though?
animation.
What sword are you using though?
Well, I'm using my fucking executioner.
So I will find the second I got a sword, I got more of that going on. But when I had my bandit dagger, I found it worked maybe 98% of the time. And those screw-ups might have just been me jumping in the gun. But when I had my bandit dagger, just this little thing, it would always work walking right up, doing the quick attack, and I take out whether it's an animal, whether it's a person. So the bandit life has helped out there. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but the little dagger was precise for my stealth attacks and stuff. And for me also, it once you got into a battle, I couldn't stealth away, but there's lots of times if they saw me and I could hide enough behind a certain wall or get enough distance, they would forget about me and go around.
I think if you go a certain range away, they seem to not like they have like their zone.
They have a
patrol.
leash. They have a leash. For
But
sure.
even then, if I didn't get into a physical fight with them, I could still find a way to kind of make them forget about me.
Okay.
That happened before where I was in their zone and they saw me. It was like an
maybe
army
once you
camp.
hit them, they get like more just aggro in general.
Yeah, because I think with this is I'm in that zone, but only the one guy is like, hey, like I'm gonna get you. Like I can sneak behind these barrels, and then he's kind of looking, he's red, and then like, okay, no, he goes away and stuff like that. So there is times, but yeah, once it's a fight, there's no. If any sneaking away happened, it was me running at the top of my lungs, which sucked because I had to run away from a giant before I knew there was a sprint button and before I had the horse early on. So it was quite an experience. I got away from him, but man, it sucked because
he was slowly walking away.
Yeah, you're not gonna get me. Luckily, he was slow, but I didn't know up until that point. It felt like the guys seeing me I had to go out of my way almost. I'm not sure if this was a bad thing to really make them notice me. So this giant, multiple times I'd snuck by. I'm like, it doesn't even matter. I just kind of strolled by him casually and he caught me. And that showed me like, okay, maybe some people are a bit more alert. And no, I survived the giant. I haven't been able to find him. I'm going back. I got to kill this giant because those giants you were talking about, dealing with the ones that are carrying like the cages and whatnot, those are worth 1,000 runes. So I'm hoping this giant's worth a little bit more than that. So
It seems to me what happened. I don't know if this is an actual mechanic, but it seems, in my experience, that like some enemies just have like an idle animation, if you will, but it's just like their natural state, and it's much easier to like sneak around them or sneak up to them. But once you aggro them, even if you run away and get out of their leash, like they will just be more alert from now on, maybe until the game reloads or something.
Well, you embarrass them.
That could be part of it.
That's fair. I've cracked myself up various times as I'm crouching, sneaking around with my giant executioner's axe that stands like 5 feet out of the tall grass, and there's this axe that's slowly creeping around. I'm like, there's no way I'm being stealthy here, but they don't suspect a thing. They're like, oh, it's just a floating axe. How
Yeah.
normal.
I heard we were getting one of those.
Okay, what's next? So they also they kind of steal the bond. A lot of the systems here are the exact same as Dark Souls and whatnot, and they have just a fancy new names like ruins instead of souls, or state or what are they called? The grace. What is it called? Oh my god, what can't I remember?
Sites of Grace.
Sites of Grace.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Which
Sites
at
of Grace
first,
instead of bonfires.
when I
Yeah.
got to it, I thought it said touch grass instead of touch grace. And I thought they were being memey the way like people say, oh, go outside and touch some grass. I'm like, this is kind of fourth wall, but like touch some grass. And I'm like, oh, it says grace. I might need some glasses. But yeah, sites of grace. Yeah.
Yeah. So that works the same, which I mean is a great checkpointing system. I've always said I think that a lot of games have stolen that since then. Since Dark Souls kind of popularized that, and it's for the better. I think it's great. They one like layer they added to it, or maybe this was in Sekiro at some point, or Bloodborne. I never saw it, but is these the statues of Marika?
Stake of Marika.
The stake. I'm messing
Stake.
up all my words here, but it kind of is just another. So if you die and you're near one of these, you can choose to respawn at your site of grace or your stake of Marika, and you just at these stakes they're pretty much just for respawning, but you can't you can't heal at them or level up and things like that. So what do you think about that? What do you guys think about that? I don't know if it really adds this whole extra layer to it. I don't know how necessary it is.
I think it's entirely one of those quality of life things. So that makes it more accessible for new people, because
Okay.
typically, like you were saying before in the Dark Souls 1, the Crystal Caves, like that, for example, that boss fight, it's so hard and you'll die a lot, and then the run back to it is like 5 minutes of constant enemies throwing shit at you,
Yeah.
and it's like super fucking frustrating. So I think what these do is that, like, if there is portions of those in this game, that it just makes it easier to go back to the boss or closer to wherever you want to be.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to use it if you want to be.
I guess I'm just
purist.
wondering why they don't just slap another site of grace there. Like in a lot, I'd say in a lot of these cases, like I don't really see you like, because sometimes there's a site of grace that's like you can see it from another one, like they're so close to each other. So it feels weird to me from a balance perspective. I don't know why. Like I'd be curious to hear the developers just describe when they chose to put a stake somewhere and when they chose to put a site somewhere.
Yeah, I think it would be a bit more clunky if there was just sites of grace, and like if they were just all replaced by sites of grace. It would feel like too handholdy in a way.
Okay.
And this is kind of a way of still being handholdy, like by getting you closer, but not so explicitly so.
Right. Yeah, and I guess it's used well, like for certain bosses, there'll be like one that's right beside the boss, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then whenever you defeat a boss, or most bosses that you defeat, actually I shouldn't say most, but a lot of bosses that you defeat do like put a site of grace under them once you kill them. So maybe it's another thing too, or if you have one of those drop from a boss, and then you also have the stake that's like 5 feet away, it might be that could be weird. But
I think it's utilized pretty well from what I've seen.
Yeah, as
Travis, what do you think about that kind of checkpointing system in general as a newcomer? Ooh, looks like he's frozen in time.
He looks
Maybe he'll
happy
come back.
though.
This is a classic Travis internet sort of thing. So
Oh no.
we'll come back to him.
good time to drop out.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, good time to drop out.
We didn't hear anything, so
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead
I
and
figure.
talk.
Yeah, I was there the whole time you guys were talking. Then you throw it to me, and so no, I honestly, because I am a newbie, I like the State of Grace. At first, I thought I hated every time I go there and all the enemies would pop back up. But then it's like, well, it does restore your health, everything your flask and stuff. So I'm like, okay, fine. It's I guess that's the only thing where it gets a little gamey, because the first time that happened to me, it broke the immersion just a tad, because I just went through this whole area, and then when I go there, it's like everything's back. So you go, oh, okay. But then I just had cannons, like, okay, well, it's just something else. These ghouls are coming back, cool. But for me, I usually just use the Site of Grace, just because as the newbie, I'm needing all those flasks for the most part. Especially there's times, like, admittedly, I've taken on bosses that maybe I shouldn't have, but I'm like, well, I'm close to an upgrade, and if I can kill this boss, I know this guy's worth like 2,000, 3,000 runes, so I'm going to do it. So that's where I've only used the state once. Most time I'm just using a Site of Grace and finding the one close enough to it.
You get your flasks back, I will say, if you didn't know that.
when you do the State of Morocco or whatever?
By going to stakes, you get your flasks back. You just can't like level up or change shit.
Yeah, when
about
you
your build.
die and you respawn there, you get all your stuff back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that's what I was going to ask you
Well,
the
not your
difference
runes,
because so but you could get your runes back by going to the spot and grabbing them, right? You could always do that, or are they just gone?
You don't get your runes back. You get your flasks back.
No, but I mean, like, if you go there, still, like, okay, let's say I fight a guy, he kills me. If I use Side Grace, I go back there, my runes are sitting there, I can grab them. With the State of Morocco, I can still do that, right? Like,
yeah,
they're still sitting there.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
So then I might have to use it more. Luckily, though, I haven't been in a situation, like Sarah says, where there is a bunch of enemies that I have to get through. There's one, but they're so slow that I just ride right past them, and they're worth like 26 runes. So, like, I'm not gonna kill these skeleton guys every time.
Yeah.
So, like, most of the time, I've kind of mapped out. Fine, okay, I'm gonna go find one. There's like a tree guy that I had to fight that wasn't too far away. It's like, okay, just anytime there's a boss and I might know, okay, I want to come back to him, or maybe it's a bit tough, I'm like, I'm gonna go find a Site of Grace first, just so it's there. So even later on, I could travel to him easy. So I like it. I like it. They put quite a few of them in too. I was kind of surprised, like you said, Dylan. Sometimes you could see them, so I like that as personally someone that is newer to the game, and it's good to have. Especially runes are just so vital, and you just hate when you like. For me, I will not go do a big boss, but like I'll make sure that if I am 500, 600 away from the runes, I'll go somewhere. I'll farm some XP. Come back, level up, and then go see a boss. Rarely am I actually going to see a boss when I am close to a level up because I don't even want to risk it. I don't want to risk losing all that hard work. If I got $400 or 400 runes, I'm buying some arrows. Just like I'll make any use of my runes and stuff like that. So the Side Grace I like from a strategic standpoint. I always be kind of, before I do something big, I need to visit one.
Yeah.
I've marked several ones that are right by stores, so you kind of hit both worlds where you go there, sell a bunch of shit, then you go to the rune, like level up twice. So yeah, I quite like them. I'm like I said, I'm surprised for a game that is so punishing that there's so many close together at times, but maybe that'll change when I go further.
No, I think it's pretty much like that everywhere I've been. And I think that's something they've just changed their ethos on over the game. Like I feel like Dark Souls 1, there is not tons of them, but the game is built more around your kind of event. You go through this whole rigmarole, you'll find some unexpected shortcut that leads you right back to the one, and then you can use that as kind of a shortcut. And so you're using this one bonfire in a lot of ways, which is great in that game. But I think over the time it's probably just easier not to do that and just to put more of them down on the map. And I think especially in this game with the open world aspect where not, 10 players are all going to go a slightly different way. Someone's going to walk along the road. Someone's going to creep around the left side in the bushes. Someone's going to go up around that mountain. And so I think they just put a lot more down because you're just probably not going to see each one. And I know there is kind of this guiding, wave that kind of tells you, here's maybe where the next one could be if you're following like this quote unquote side quest, although it's not really that obvious in the game necessarily. But yeah, I think they just put a lot of them down. Like I feel like by the time Dark Souls 3 rolled around, like they were spamming this shit everywhere. There was copy paste and left, right, and center with the bonfires.
And one thing I'll say, because you and I talk about this a lot, Dylan, in games, I quite like that you can just fast travel to them and there is no rune spending and stuff, because in a game that has so much other things that are punishing, if like to fast travel with like 100 runes every time, stuff like that, because there's so many times where I'm literally just going to one spot, just level up, and then just go right back to the boss. It's not that I can't get there or I'm scared to. It's just, okay, if I had to travel all the way there, especially with such a big map, just to maybe upgrade one thing, I think that would, yeah, sure, you can make a case of, that's more immersive. But for me, I like that I can do that, then get right back to the mission. I don't feel like, I got to take not a detour like we talked about earlier. Sometimes games do, like a fun detour. This would be, I got to go all the way back to do this and do this before I can even enjoy this mission or this castle. Okay, I'm going to do this. Where literally I can hit pause, travel, then go right back to the nearest Site of Grace, and then, okay, I'm right back to, I'm going to fight this dragon. I'm going to fight this thing. And I do like that because also, again, everything else is pretty punishing in the game. So if they're going to be a little easier on the fast travel thing, I'm happy about that because you can just literally just pause and you're good to go. There's no, I thought it was going to be you'd have to go to Site of Grace and then you could fast travel everywhere. No, you just pause and you can go anywhere you want as long as you're not under fire,
Yeah, that was surprising to me. And you can't be underground, I think. You have to like be in the
sky. There's certain areas where maybe like a larger underground area where you can teleport between those sites of grace. Like maybe there's 3 in this giant underground thing, but then you can't go above. You have to go back through some other way. So, but I haven't really encountered much of that, to be honest. Usually you are pretty free to go as you please.
Yeah.
they've added some more basic things like crafting is a classic open world thing. Upgrading your weapons was always there, and I don't know, tuning your magic and whatnot is something I've just not really played with much in the previous game, so I can't really speak much to the magic, and I also haven't used it at all in this game. So I really, I don't know if have any of you used magic at all? Well, Travis, sounds like you're trying to get leveled up to get this one spell.
I'm
but
working
have you
up
used
to
some
it.
spells so far?
No, I'm working up to it. Other than just like the Ashes of War, which is just like the you can use like make your sword a bit stronger for a slight like that. Like anyone that I consider that kind of magic, but the actual spells, no. But I'm working up to that, so maybe the next time I'll be able to talk to that because I guess my character is going to be. I'm kind of taking the method of he's pretty overall like base. He's not overly. My strength is the highest one, but I have a lot of other things because I got a lot of stuff like when you're walking around naked, that's not me. I want as much armor, so I got a shield. I'm fully.
I take
decked
it on
out.
And off. I'm really liberal.
Yes, of course. I got a shield. I got a whole armor set. I got a crossbow. So it's like I need to be like a lot of weight and stuff like that. So I'm kind of all over, but I want some magic because there's just some certain situations where it would be great because certain things like the crossbow or it would just be like another item in my repertoire versus okay, the sword powerful is great, but if I could have this magic as well, so that I'm working up towards that. I'm building on my faith.
It he cut out again.
Yeah, but I think he was done his thoughts. That was kind of timing.
I haven't tried magic in this game, but I've tried it in other games, and I didn't really like it because it feels clunky. Like so many bosses are so aggressive in other games, and when you use magic, you have to be very distanced, and you kind of like there's like a pause time while you're casting your spell where you hold up your staff or whatever, and I found that very clunky at least with my play style that I'm used to. But so I don't know if it's like that in this game, but I typically don't try magic.
I'm curious to try out like I said, another character when I'm either later in this game or when I've done it once, done a playthrough and come back and try some magic out because I don't know, maybe I'll get a few points up and get a couple basic spells, but at this point I just feel like I'm so far gone and my level ups are pretty far in between at this point. But Sarah, what do you think about the crafting? Because I don't think they've really done crafting in the same way in this game. They've just done like upgrading, but I have to say I don't think I've crafted a single thing in the crafting menu.
No, I haven't either. I got the craft kit and then I kind of looked up to see what I could craft, and I'm not really like a consumable or like a throwable item kind of guy. I kind of just run in with my sword, so I don't see much use for crafting with my playstyle, but I guess it depends on what you have available to you.
I think maybe like crafting things that would negate poison damage or something like those seem really useful, especially a couple bosses. Like the bosses that use poison or equivalent things, those are just the worst
bastards.
So but I don't think I even have unlocked crafting stuff for that. Like you kind of get, I'd say fairly often, or you can buy stuff from vendors that's like crafting kits, like there's like 1 through 10 or whatever it is of different types. But I feel like I haven't really. But I'm really not spending that much time collecting things either, and that's thankfully really easy to do. Like you just obviously walk over something and hit Y. It's not like this whole rigmarole of looting and organizing your inventory. Like it's pretty easy. So I don't really go out of my way to pick things up on the ground. So we'll see if I regret that later when I need 100 of these red roses to grab some like poison. But I don't know, Travis. Have you been using that system at all?
No, not at all. Because most of the time. Luckily the bosses have either beat, or if it's a state of poisoning, okay, I'm just going to finish this as quickly as I can, get out of here, and then get to a site of grace, because that's going to be my insta-heal right there. I'd heard about the crafting thing, and I actually haven't even bought a kit yet, just because it's just one of those where I just feel like when I buy, most of my runes are going towards leveling up. So when I buy something from the store, I have to feel like, okay, I'm going to get a lot of use out of this. Like the sword was okay, this was a need to, I have to buy. And
are you
like
upgrading your weapons so far? Because I would highly recommend upgrading even if it's like a lower level weapon, like just get a couple levels in it. It really makes quite a difference.
So that's for like the weaponsmith and everything, right?
Yeah.
So like stones you get?
Yeah, the shards, and like in that first church that you get to, like that's kind of where I go, or you can go to a couple other places. There's other smiths around the world, but that's
okay. Because
place.
If it's in that first thing, I might have to send you a screenshot and show me where to go, because I have a bunch, and I know I've been wanting to, and I was introduced to one, and then I completely forgot about it like hours later once I found a bunch of them. And I think I have 7 or 8 of them in my, and I haven't sold them because I know I'm going to use them. I've just been waiting to look it up and like where I could find them. So I might hit you up later so I can find where to go because
it's at the Church of Eli or Elia or something. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's literally like just right north of the first step, like the first where you spawn.
Okay.
And yeah, like there's a vendor there. That's when you first meet the character that I can't remember her name, but you talk to her.
Melina or something like that.
Yeah, and then there's an anvil there that you can upgrade your weapons at. That's
really?
cool.
I didn't actually. I just go to the guy in the round table hold.
The round table, yeah. I guess you could go to him as well. Either one is probably just about as fast if you're gonna fast travel back. So
well, I'll be doing that tonight because
definitely
I got a bunch of those and I definitely want to do that. So because I also I'm working on my faith and then I'm working on my dexterity right now because I have about 5 weapons that I can't hold yet, and they're all ones I've collected from bosses. So I want to see because some of them are like an attack power of 83, but its skill is really cool because it like heals you and it like does extra damage. So I'm gonna kind of go around, and then if I don't use them, then I just got a bunch of stuff to sell. Like one of them's like worth $500. So because the sword I have right now is I think it's 143. So most of them that I have are just below that or quite below her, so I might not end up using any of them, but they look a lot cooler than just my sword, so I'd like to use one of them. So maybe I could use some of the cool skill and just make them more powerful, so I might save some of those stones too, actually. So
one thing to keep in mind too is if you are wanting to use a weapon that has really high strength, if you two-hand a weapon, then you essentially get like bonus strength. So let's say, I don't know, let's say the strength needed for this weapon is 20, and you only have 15. I don't know these actual numbers.
I think it's you need like 50% less.
Okay. So yeah, if you have like less than the actual strength, but you two-hand the weapon, then you can actually use it effectively. And even weapons that you don't have the stats for, like you can still use them. And I think that's what's great about if you want to just carry on this badass weapon, you can still use it. You're just going to do a lot less damage than someone else. But if you put some upgrades on that weapon, it might still be a pretty good weapon. Well,
there's some you
definitely
can't
worth trying out.
Yeah, there's some you can't carry though, right? Because there's some with my dexterity where if I go hit the use it, it's blanked out. Like I can't use it.
Maybe that's.
Yeah.
I think it depends on I know strength weapons you can like always use them. Sometimes you just can't.
Because I swear there was a weapon that I didn't have enough dex to use it, but I could still like put it on and like swing it around. It was not really worth using in combat because the stat I'd be getting such a might debuff on the damage of it that it's not really worth using. But you can at least like try it out because then that's nice. You can like pick up the weapon and swing it around and see if you actually like the way it plays before you decide upgrading it or even or before you invest all this dex to get it and then you realize I actually don't like the way this thing plays. So definitely mess around with that because it's not very clear, or at least I've found that kind of thing is not very clear, but you can kind of just use whatever.
Well, I will because most of those weapons I have I can't even use. That option's just like grayed out and
like
stuff
even
like
if you
that.
don't have the ability to wear all this armor effectively, you can still throw it on. You might, if you lose your roll, not worth using, but but you can still put it on. So I like that they have that.
How do you two-hand a weapon? You guys have referred to that.
I know it's really weird. You have to hit Y and right bumper. So Y and your light attack at the same time.
Really?
And then you two-hand it. You can't have if you have a shield in I don't know if it would kick your shield out or if you would have to scroll through.
I think you probably have to scroll through. But if you
have a shield in one hand and you start two-handing, you just like put the shield on your back,
right?
And then when you stop two-handing, you just take the shield out again.
Yeah. So once you select two-handing, are you locked in that mode, or do you have to hold those two? But do you always have to hold?
It's like a toggle. It like toggles on two-handing or toggles off two-handing.
Okay.
It's very. Once you have done it once, it's like, okay, this actually feels great and it's fine. It's just like one of those things that's very strangely doesn't feel like intuitive at first. But
they have different movesets too.
Mm-hmm.
That can be more useful for different situations.
Because if you're using a shield, most often your shield's going to have a parry as your left trigger, like your heavy attack with your left trigger essentially. But if you're two-handing a weapon, then most of the weapons, if not all of them, have a special ability. So for example, I had this claymore, and the left trigger attack is I just fly forward to the front flip and slice people, or my executioner's axe, like he goes and then I just get buff damage. So it's definitely worth checking out because you can also switch to two-handed, use an ability, and then switch back to your shield, and you can get pretty quick with that stuff. And and you don't have to go in your inventory. You can just kind of, if you set it all up in advance, you can kind of click around. So it feels good switching between things. Like if you have to put a torch on, take it off. If you're going in a cave, like I like that. Once you set something up in your inventory, it feels pretty good to switch around and modify your playstyle on the go.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. I'm just Mr. Quick Attack. Like I know the heavy attack does all damage, but my quick attack, that's the route I'm going and stuff like that. But yeah, and plus I have a couple like the Ashes of War that are on there. So even some of them, if you have the shield, you can use. Like there's a few that you have to have just nothing but the sword. But there's this one where the guy just stomps. He just stomps and creates like a circle around him that does damage, and you can have that while you have a shield and your sword and stuff like that. So and then the other one is just you hold up against your face like Aragorn going into a fight, and then it's just the next slash is worth like how much more percentage or something like that. So those have been fun. But yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna be trying some two-hand on some poor zombies. They always make you feel bad. The ones that like cower in fear, like, well, sorry, I need the runes, man, and then you. But I told Emily, some of them, yeah. I feel bad, but I told Emily I'm just putting them out of their misery, right? Like that, like they don't want to be living like this, you know. So
sure, but then you rest at a site of grace, and they come back, and then you do it again. It's like, that's getting a bit cruel now.
Endless torture there.
Yeah, this never-ending thing.
The in-game menu system is really good. I don't know if you guys are utilizing it. I just learned how to use the pouch the other day, and I was like, oh shit, like this is super useful.
Tell me about the pouch.
Do you use the pouch?
I don't know what the pouch is.
You don't know what it's like. So you know how on the bottom left you can like it's like the 4 directions, and you have your.
Oh, do you just mean like down, or is this something?
No, different? Well, down is the regular thing where that's like your items that you use, like your flask. But you can bind stuff to the pouch, where like I bind my horse to the pouch, where you can have your flask, so you don't have to switch between things. So you just hit your pouch, and you're like,
so it's like up on the D-pad. Then is what you're saying?
No, it's like you hold triangle, and then it opens a whole new directional pad. That's like a second.
Whoa.
Yeah. Okay, I've been doing that.
This is new to me.
Because that's how I call my horse.
Yeah, it's good for the horse. It's great.
How are you calling your horse, Dylan?
I just scroll through my D-pad. Like I just hit down on
you
the
can
D-pad.
get stuck in sticky situations like that.
So I have my Estus flask, and then I click over to, which hasn't really messed with me a whole lot. Like I guess that's why I haven't looked for a solution, because it hasn't seemed to be a problem. But I mean, this pouch sounds great, so I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, that's actually been I did it accidentally. That's been the way I've been doing it the entire game, is the holding Y, and then it's Y left for me. It is one of these things where you gotta be quick on it, because if a guy takes advantage of you, you get hit. But yeah, it's that I've been utilizing.
But it's quicker than scrolling through. Like there's no error. Whereas if you scroll through and hit the wrong thing, you're just fucked.
Yeah.
Right. Good to know. I'll
there you go.
Yeah.
That's another one of those weird things. So let's stroll along into combat, I guess. So I guess I feel weird talking about combat, because to me it just feels like Dark Souls 3 again, with like, jump attacks feel great, and as Sarah's mentioned, the kind of guard counter attack, and then just, new weapons and all that stuff feels fun. But like the core combat is kind of the same, so it's weird, because I could talk about that, but then I feel like it's not necessarily like new mechanics necessarily, but once again, feels great. I like how there's wind up on your weapons, and the bosses also have wind up, and just like that, that flow, that dance that Travis alluded to. It all feels great. They just keep making new improvements each time. Sekiro kind of went down a different route, and they tried to add some new things. But once again, this is kind of back to formula, and this is feels good, simple, fun, and I don't think I have much more to add on that.
No, I think that's the way you said. Good and simple, fun. It's nothing like, I haven't played the other games, but just in general, it's not reinventing the wheel that way. It's just like how you use it and the timing of it and stuff like that. But it's very like heavy and light attack is one of the most basic things you can put in a game, right? And then, like I said, you pretty much just use roll, and the most traverse thing is the stuff you use maybe at the bottom, where you're switching between flasks or a Ash of War power. But it works for this game.
It is very basic, but I think that they, like, within that basicness, they give you options to make it feel like you still know what you're doing. Like there's different attacks, like you can roll and immediately attack, that's a different moveset. You can jump back and immediately attack, you can jump forward, that's a different moveset. Like you can have your parry shield if you want to be tricky with it. Like it gives you a lot of good options, even though it is just 2 buttons really.
Yeah, no, they've just mastered it over time, and don't need too much to add, but they don't need to add too much to, I don't know, there's just nothing they really need to add, but they added a couple new things, and that feels great. Let's talk about something. So, Travis, you alluded to the enemy designs. This being one thing that kind of got you interested in the game, just from the trailers and whatnot. What do you think? Is there anything that's blowing you away here? Basic enemies, big enemies. What do you think of the kind of enemy design here?
Pretty much, I'm impressed with it all. Like, you of course have like very early on when you're in the first stage, you have just your general, just like guards, right? But when you alluded to when you're first walking the game, just this big spider thing like pops to the ground, like, okay, this is fascinating. But there's just such a variety of textures or colors, or whether they're ghosts or whether they're beasts. Like I said, the Beast Man was something that has stuck with me. I was so happy to go back up and mess him up. But you have like him who's just like ugly, and he's kind of like some combination of like a werewolf almost. But then you have some like I fought the Black Cavalry, which he says like a Nazgul, like he's just very proper looking and he's red, or like he has like a red kind of smoke coming from, but there's so much, just it's just like dripping in fantasy, and there's some that look beautiful but they're gonna mess you up, like the kind of silver or gold knight that's kind of around. But then there's some that are just grotesque, and they just scare you when you see them, because you gotta take in like, I gotta fight this guy, but I also just gotta look at like what this thing is. But it's funny that they all look so different, but they fit in the world that they've made. So yeah, and it's, you don't get any like lore or anything behind them, but there's enough that you'd kind of almost like headcanon your own stuff. So yeah, that's all top notch, and it's just a big kudos to the team, and whether obviously it's a multitude of people, but the artists behind these designs, some really cool, unique designs that you think you've seen it all, and then this stuff pops up. So everything from because even when you're going through certain areas, it's not just the same. You got guards, you have those weird, almost like statue-looking people. You got the zombies, you got skeletons. Like even your minor ones, it's a nice. And there's probably so many more I haven't even got to. You got wolves running around. You got like deceased wolves. Like it doesn't make it boring. It's not like, okay, this again. And if you do see them again, sometimes it's hours later, and sometimes too it's just like even when you start the game to versus when you see them 3 hours later. Before, there was one night on a beach that wasn't a boss or anything. He was just like kind of a bigger night, and I had to like really work and like do some rolls. This, I just walked up to him, boom boom, and then like took his stuff and got out of there. So all the designs so far have been really, really cool, and really it just, again, it's like the Frodo comparison. It's an adventure from the landscape, but also just what's gonna pop up, what's gonna be in this dungeon, what's gonna be in this cave, and that's more than half the fun.
Definitely. That's like specifically the boss design is probably my number one favorite aspect of the Dark Souls series. Like some of those areas, like Dylan, I think it's in the third one, I don't remember what his name is, and the fight isn't very fun, but like the aesthetic of this giant skeleton, the one where he's climbing up the hill towards you and it's pitch black, that is aesthetically like the sickest boss fight I've ever fucking seen. And I'm just so excited to see more stuff like that, because I haven't seen like any bosses in my own playthrough, and I'm just so excited.
You haven't got to any bosses yet? Whoa.
I've done a bunch of optional bosses from like the side caves, and the only main boss I've seen and beat is Margit.
Right. Let's talk about him a little bit. So, I don't know, I almost said Briggs, but Travis, I think you've fought Margit, right? Or have you not?
I
thought based on hearing your... Okay, because
doesn't sound like you have.
No, I don't think so, because I've just been doing multiple of either cave ones or dungeon ones. Yeah. And there's one in particular that I don't like. What does he look like? I don't mind knowing like what type of
he's big. He's got a sword.
Is he more manly, or is there like an animal?
He's kind of both.
Okay,
he's kind of like an undead sort of dude.
He's like human stature, but he has like a big tail.
He's really big though. Like he's the size of those like creepy like husky zombie dudes that walk around. That
okay, no, I don't think
he's like that big.
You would know. You would know if you fought him, because
he's like a story guy. Yeah, he's part of like what feels like the main quest. Okay, so it's funny because in the Discord, I forget if it was our personal chat or the GV like community one, but you were like, oh, I just fought my first like Elden Ring boss this night, and I thought you were talking about Margit, but apparently you're talking about the Black Knight on the bridge. So that's interesting. You went a different route, which I guess is the least shocking thing. But Sarah, so what'd you think about that boss?
Man,
And maybe we won't give away the whole, tricks of the trade. But for me,
no,
I did not go that way at first. I went like the complete opposite direction. I came back like 8 or so hours in after I had done some stuff. So to me, I kind of walked over him. Honestly, it was my second try. I kind of cleared him out. But what did you think of that?
did
that
you
boss
really?
fight?
Man, I'm like the opposite of you then, because so like I got the horse and the level up, and then as soon as I got the horse, I pretty much just like beelined it for him without knowing he was
Yeah,
there. And I was level 13. I had my unupgraded battle axe, and I was
that'd be
doing like
hard. Yeah.
50 damage with my two-handing light attacks, and I was like, you know what? Like this is hard as hell, but I can do this.
Yeah.
It took me 2 hours, and I know that fight like the back of my hand, dude. Like
That's amazing.
because it's such a hard fight. Like for a first boss, he's actually like quite difficult,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
combined with that, I was like pretty underleveled for it. I was like, I have to do this though, and it felt so good. Like that's what I was talking about before. With you get your ass kicked, but you learn, and then you can do it, and that's like
Hmm.
a perfect example. It
Yeah.
felt so good after it.
Yeah, I wonder how much of the design of that fight was because that's kind of like a very, this is an open world game, but there are sections that are kind of blocked off in a way, and that if you want to go north in the map, pretty much, like that's pretty much the only way to go. Is like to go through him and go through that castle, as far as I can tell.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I wonder how much of that is designed to be like very difficult, so that people get the clue of like, if I went here right off the start, because the sites of grace kind of guide you there,
Mhm.
if you would be like, okay, I'm gonna go explore now because I am not clearly not strong enough to this. But obviously, if you're a newcomer or if you're a returning player from the series, like yeah, you can do it with your starter weapon.
Mhm.
But yeah, by the time I came back, like it's not like I 3-shot him or something, but I was definitely ranked up and I was pretty familiar with the mechanics.
Yeah.
Uh, and I also used like the summons, and I feel like the summons kind of fucked him up too.
I never use summons, man. I never do. I feel too proud for it. I was like, I
Yeah,
gotta do
you're
this for
very much a
myself.
purist when it comes to how you play these games. Like
Yeah,
you're
I
like no
definitely am.
shield, like I'm only using my rolls.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not above using the summons. And there like I don't remember. I'm sure there was spells you could summon things in the previous games, but I don't remember that at all. So is that
Well,
is that
the
new?
ashes are new. It feels like
Yeah,
where
but I
you
don't know if
can
there's been just like magic where you're just summoning things in the past.
no like the ashes. You mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I think that's new.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I know as a mechanic and like as like a separate thing, it's new, but
Mhm.
maybe they've had a spell in the past where you can summon a
Oh,
skeleton. Is what I
yeah.
mean. I don't
Maybe.
know.
I don't remember. I never used magic in the other ones,
Yeah,
but it's possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't remember even seeing like picking up a spell that looked like it would be summoning
Yeah.
something, but
Besides like a
they
boss.
definitely help. They can distract the boss for a little bit. Usually
Yeah.
the bosses will just destroy the summons in like a couple hits, but it lets you at least get a couple hits in as they're kind of
Yeah.
distracted.
Yeah.
But the first main boss I fought, because obviously I went pretty far in the open world and I went in a couple of those little dungeons and whatnot. But the first like story boss or the boss that like pinged an achievement when I beat him took
Mhm.
me like a solid 30 attempts or more,
Hmm.
and definitely wrecked me for a long time. And felt very good when I finally did it. And also, it's one of those cases where I just love the setup of these bosses. Like some of them get a cutscene when you find them for the first time. My name, Abyss Watcher, that I had here as my nickname. Like just the intro to the Abyss Watcher. Travis, you should watch that on YouTube at some point. Just like Abyss Watcher intro, because it is the coolest like dress setting for a boss fight I've
Mhm.
ever seen. Like just this million corpses on the ground. You see this guy kill like a clone of himself, and then he just puts the sword to you and he says, "Bring it," and then the fight just starts. It's
It's a
just
great fight.
and it's just like 2 minutes. It's great. And so I feel like this fight, it didn't have like some long intro cutscene, but just the path to get there was just like I went through this castle and then I left the castle and then I just went down, jumping off cliffs, down through this beach, and then way in the corner is like this boss. And I thought that was interesting that
Mm.
rather than this boss hiding up in the castle, pent up in the courtyard or something, he's like isolated way off in the corner. It made it like that much creepier. And of
Is
course,
it
there's like
optional or is it like a
well,
main
like I
boss?
said, I got an achievement when I beat it, so I'm guessing though if you get an achievement for beating a boss, that there because the only two other one like Margit pops an achievement and then the boss like after that. And if you go north in Stormvale, there's another one. So I don't know. I don't know what the story relevance of this boss is when I beat them, but I think they're going to be important for something. Is my guess, but. Hard to tell with this game. Like you don't get like some quest progress when you kill a boss like this. You just go on to the next thing. So
yeah.
I'm
excited, man. I love the bosses in these games.
Yeah, like I said, I've probably encountered like 20, and there's only a couple that I've stepped away from for the time being. I'm like, I'm gonna come back a bit later, but for the most part, yeah. Even if it's like super hard, I'm down to blast through it. There's been a couple that are very, very difficult. Some of them are maybe a bit too easy. Like the balance, I think, is just a hard thing to get. And it's like I'm pretty high level. I just do so much damage to this boss that I kill him on the first try, and I feel like I didn't even see half their moveset. And I don't know. I guess I don't feel disappointed in that because it's quantity and it is quality. Like they're not like half-assing it on at least the ones I've encountered. It's not like they're like half-assing it in any way, but there is a lot in there. So naturally, there's going to be some you clear out really good, or really easily, and that kind of feels good too to be able to just wreck a boss and then the next boss like destroys you. So there is kind of this natural balance, but obviously everyone's going to have a different path with how they discover them. So
well, that's why I'm excited to get to that first boss now, because I'm going to be like probably a lot higher level than you're supposed to be, because I never went that direction. Like, I'm just going to go this way.
No, honestly, I think Dylan hit it right on the head, where like you're supposed to hit Margit maybe relatively early like I did, but it's supposed to, and it's there to encourage you to explore, to say like, hey, there's all this other shit that you can do. So I think, I mean, depending on how much you grind before you hit him, like if you were to hit him right now, I don't think you'd be like, wow, this is fucking easy.
Yeah.
Because you're over leveled. I think you'd be like, okay, this is like a fair fight now.
There you go.
I felt like maybe he was just one of those bosses that just his attacks and whatnot, just to me like made a lot of sense from like playing Dark Souls 3. Like he just seemed like one of those, so I could kind of use my old tricks. Like I didn't have to learn anything new.
But
then I was like higher level, so
I'm curious on how Travis will fare, because he doesn't have those old tricks.
Yeah.
No.
Right? So it's like,
yeah.
it's interesting.
I'm starting to learn some tricks now. You know, hopefully I'll have the tricks working out when I get to them. So.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where do we want to move next? So there's a lot, obviously, they're open world, and then you're coming across these kind of set piece areas. There's these like dungeons. There's like a little cave that might be like a mini dungeon that's like maybe 10, 15 minutes tops. But then you'll also come across a lot of castles, and some of these castle sequences can be very long. Like, I mean, take hours to get through one of them if you go through every last corner, and then usually there's a boss or maybe even two bosses in one castle by the very end. As just a big fantasy fan, like, Elder Scrolls and Lord of the Rings and all that, man, I just love these castles. Like, I would just play, if they made like a roguelike version of this where it's just where you just go into a new castle every time and they've like handmade these I don't know, that would just be all I would need, because I just love going through these castles. And the level design from Software games are so uniquely different, where it doesn't feel like anything is off limits. Like, you can just try and sneak around this ledge, and it feels like, oh, I should not be allowed to go here, but then you do, and maybe you get some secret item, or it's like, ooh, but now I can jump down to this platform, and then you found this whole other area. And so this one area, Castle Morn, really stands out to me. That's where that boss was. That was like the first big section I did, and that's when I was like, okay, I love this game, because this was one of the best levels like ever. This is just such a well-designed level, and obviously a section in the open world, but if you break them down to what would be like a normal game's level, just fantastic stuff. I love trudging through these castles.
I think that's where I am right now. Like, I'm about to hit that castle. Is that the one on the south?
Yeah, it's like the southern tip. And
does it have a big giant in it?
There's a giant out front. I don't. Where Saris? Where are you? Have you got to the castle yet?
So I'm on that island, and I'm doing everything outside of the castle first, because I have to explore everything.
So I'm really excited for you to get there then, because I love, like I said, that was like the first big thing I did, and that boss there fucked me up. So I'm excited to hear if you have like the opposite experience of Margit, where you just destroy this boss because you're kind of used to the game now. But I think that's like. I keep saying this is my favorite thing about this game, but that's just how much I love this game. Like, those castles are just fantastic.
Yeah.
Did this castle, when you walk in, does it have like a lot of wolves at the beginning of it?
There are a couple wolves. It's mostly mostly like a humanoid enemy, though. in this. You go up like this
Okay.
elevator essentially. I don't want to say too much for the sake
Yeah,
of
but
Sarah
mine
staying
had a
there,
lot
but-
of wolves. That's why mine sounds exactly like yours, where I have to look at the map again. But there's a big giant walking back and like he's just walking back and forth in front of the entrance, right?
No, this guy's different. This guy's doing something very mischievous. I won't say what. but-
Okay, then no, I got somewhere else then. So
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of castles, so
Yeah,
naturally
yeah.
you're gonna bump into a few. Like I've trudged through like 10 castles at this point, but it never gets boring, and each one is so uniquely made. And even if you just like, there's this one where it had kind of like this main courtyard area, and then enemies were up top like sniping me as I walked in, but at the bottom of that courtyard was just like this giant beast that they had slain, I guess. So just like the set dressing there of like these guys were defending this base, and they have their podium set up, whatever, with the spikes to keep the beasts out, and then I just kind of walk in and I come to fuck them up. It's great. And like the bandit camps too. They're nothing crazy. We've seen them before. It's kind of like a Fable bandit camp or Ghost of Tsushima bandit camp. There's nothing new there, but they're still just super fun. And the way they set up the enemies, there's a couple ranged ones that are going to be firing on you, and then there's one guy with a big shield, another guy's just going to fly at you and swipe a bunch of times. They just design all these sections so well that no matter which way you pop into it, you're going to have a fun time. At least that's been my experience. Any thoughts on just like, I don't know, places you're going to? Any places so far that have stood out to you? A certain castle or like a cave or any set pieces?
I honestly haven't seen any. Like I've literally, like I hit Margate, but I haven't progressed into Stormvale yet.
Yeah,
And I went back.
Stormvale is amazing. That's just also an all timer. That's a great area.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I've only been in like the rolling New Zealand hills of Limgrave,
Yeah.
so I'm stoked.
yeah, there's two. Like I said, the Wolfman or Beastman one, that was one early on. Then there's one that I don't want to say too much, but it's a very Indiana Jones type of dungeon where there is, if you think about Indiana Jones and the big rolling ball. Have you been there, Dylan, yet?
No, but I've been to another area that had a big rolling ball.
Okay, yeah. So it's not exactly a ball, but it's very spiked, and it's very lots of timing, lots of things you got to do in there. There's lots of things you can unlock. There's one place that I'm not going to because I know. Well, there's two because it's. There's one place I can get to and I can get the thing there, but then some bad stuff happens and there's a mist door where I went there and it's really bad. But I was in this dungeon for quite a while. It's one of the first caves you're in or whatever the site of grace is, and it's when you have your stone ward keys or whatever. It's the one with the two heads,
Right.
and that's the dungeon, and that's it's very impressive. I spent a good solid probably 5 hours in there, and like I said, I don't want to say too much, but there's quite an experience and lots of things. And the thing that's interesting about it is it's a variety of levels, so it's not like, oh, you get there and if you're this level you can beat it all. It's like, oh, this floor, very easy level. This part, mid-tier. This one, don't even think about. This one, you might be able to pull off, but you might not be able to pull off. So that's what was it was good and frustrating because to get kind of into this dungeon took a lot of time. So I know when I go back, I'm going to have to take a lot of time to get back in, but I'm just waiting until I'm a bit more higher level because there's some things in there that I don't think I could, I can't do right now. Not a chance. So just with the environment too, I can't use a horse, and even the environment is very dangerous that I'm in. So even rolls are not like it's not easy to roll where I am. So that's one that stuck on me. There's a big dungeon. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's take another quick ad break. We'll come back, and I only have a few more notes here, but I think this might be our last ad break. But let's take a quick break. Okay, and we're back. I wanted to shout out just one more kind of cave area, and then we can talk about something else. But one thing I like is, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, one of my favorite games of all time. But I'm gonna be honest here, every cave looks the same. They have the same. They had the same toolkit that they were making, and they just have different ways they snake around. Maybe sometimes there's some wooden platforms or whatnot. But what I love about this game is the first few caves I was in Limgrave all kind of had that same vibe, just kind of gray rock, some moss and all of that. It looked kind of samey. But then I went to this other area in the game that's, I wouldn't even call it, it's not anything like a desert, but it's kind of desert-ish. I'm guessing you guys haven't quite been there yet,
No.
but it's not really a desert, but I'll just say it's desert-y. And the caves there are so different where it's kind of like this sandstone, like it's very sandy, more red, and yeah, it just has a totally different vibe. So even just like these dungeons are very like kind of have a different vibe depending on where you are on the map, and I think that's cool rather than every cave just feeling the exact same. So shoutouts to that. And also that dungeon was just terrifying because first of all it's very dark at first, so I'm cruising around. I have my torch, but even with the torch, it's like I can only see so far. And then I'm just hearing these. I'm playing with these headphones on, and like I'm just hearing these screams in the distance. And then eventually I get to like a more lit up area, and there's just these cages everywhere, and this really grotesque enemy. They're just stuck behind the cages, and they're just fucking screaming at me, and they're locked up, so they can't get to me. And I go through, and this is like a longer dungeon, so I'm going through it all. And, you know, eventually I get to this part where it's kind of like this little base set up, and I fight these guys. And then I see a lever. I'm like, I know what this lever is going to do. I got to do this, but I know what's going to happen. And of course, when I open that lever, all of those cages open up, and then I'm like, shit, now I just got to go back through this dungeon again, but it's going to have this whole new context. And then the craziest thing about that dungeon is when I finished it, it was like, you know, this 20-30 minutes of just anxiety. I walked out and I was back in like a very familiar area, which is not where I entered the cave from, but it just went for so long zaning, like zipping through the mountains, that I popped out on a different side, and I was like back in Limgrave, and you know the music was nice again.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that was like just amazing. And there's like that just happens all the time.
That's very Dark Souls 1.
Nice. I
like
that.
Well, yeah, when you open up a whole, like what you were saying before,
Right.
you use the same bonfire, but you open up like a whole new shortcut to it. It's very satisfying to find that.
Yeah, I had one of those. I took over a camp, and it was a chest, and you open it up, and then so I was in the bottom right corner of the map, and it took me all the way.
Teleports you.
Yeah, it took me to the very tip top of the right corner of the map.
Yeah, I've done that too. I think I did
the crystal
that too.
caves or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I
or
won't
something
say,
like that.
Yeah, I won't say what's on the other end because it's not a cave that I went to. It's a tower that I ended up going to. It's a castle, and it's let's just say someone's sleeping there, and it's my next journey. It's my next what I want to take down. And again, I have all these things that I are not maybe going towards the direction of the main quest, but it's just like, well, I found this thing and I want to take it down. And I tried a couple times, like, you know what, a couple more levels, I think I could. So I'm gonna come back. But that was so cool. It was just a moment of like, where am I going? And at one point, I didn't have a Site of Grace, so I couldn't travel back because I had a good amount of runes. It's like I don't even want to try this yet. Like I don't want to lose these. But then it's like, oh, once you find a Site of Grace, you're fine. You can travel. So okay, I did that, upgraded, went back, and yeah, that's such an exciting moment when you find a wall miss and you're just like, should I do this right now? And you look at what you got, you look at the stats of your character, and you look at your runes. If I'm rocking 500, I'll risk it. Let's see. But if I'm close to that next upgrade, I go, you know what? I'm gonna throw that skull marker on there and come back another time and see what's in there. Because, like I said, Beastman ruined it for me. Anytime I went through there, and it's just. Because unlike other games, which is a good thing, I thought, okay, I'm going to go through here, but worst case scenario, I'm going to come right back. I didn't know you just get locked in there. You know, I thought, oh, you have to kill this person or creature to get out. So I learned the hard way. So
yeah, sometimes you just get screwed. I love the teleportations and just ending up in some completely unfamiliar, mind-blowing place, and then maybe even sometimes you teleport to a place and there's really not much you can go. Like maybe there's one guy you can fight and then you kind of just have to leave. But even like maybe you'll see from there, you get a vantage point that lets you see somewhere that you end up, 5 hours later. And it's like, oh shit, that's that out there. There's that island. I was over there at one point. So just the way it kind of connects this world is really cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cyrus, do you have something to say there?
Well, Dylan, you asked me before we started this if I've hit any illusory walls.
Yeah.
No. I haven't.
Me neither.
Travis, do you know this is a thing?
No, what is this?
So it's walls that I don't know if you have to in this game if you hit them or if you roll through them, but they're walls, but you can interact with them and then they disappear, and it's like a whole new, whatever.
Sometimes it might be a shortcut or even like a whole bigger area, or sometimes it's just like an item.
Yeah.
But I've rolled into a lot of walls and weird caves that seemed conspicuous, and I haven't found any yet. So
no, me neither.
I don't know if that's a thing in this game, which would be a weird thing to take out. I also haven't seen any mimic chests. I don't know if you guys have seen any of those. But,
no, I haven't.
What would a mimic chest do?
A mimic chest is just like you open a chest, but then it's actually an enemy and it fucks you up.
And it bites you.
So it's sorry to ruin that surprise if it does happen, and now I just kind of spoiled that shock. There's other
you don't
times,
know
like,
though. He's not going to know which one's a mimic.
I've had something similar where I open it and I grabbed it. Once I grabbed it, it triggered enemies coming from a direction, but not from the chest. No.
So yeah, there's some things that kind of have been staples of the series, and I don't know if that stuff was in Sekiro. It was like hidden walls and stuff in Sekiro. It probably was. I don't know if mimics were. I don't know if that'd be a Sekiro.
I don't
thing.
think hidden walls were, but like maybe hidden like paths where you can like jump over something. I don't think they would take that out though. I think it's just it's not obvious.
Yeah, if you're gonna have an open, it's gonna be like it's gonna be some weird thing, or it's just some random cliffside, and there's no reason why you should ever go to that wall.
Yeah,
right? Because it's an open world, rather than like, okay, well, if I can go through this one level of the game and roll into every wall, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
But if you have to do it in the open world, there's someone out there who's already beaten the game, and they're like a Reddit sleuth, and they're just like out there rolling into every fucking rock in the world trying to find some hidden goodies.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little. I don't think I have much to say, but I just wanted to praise the music. I think it's great. Just the theme that plays in the open world, where it's just like, it's calming, peaceful, and like I said, like after a boss fight that's very intense, it comes this familiar and almost nostalgic thing. But then there's also times where it's just like rips a tritone for like 5 minutes straight, and it's just like this eerie noise that like fucks with your mind. And then some areas have really terrifying music. Obviously the boss fights and whatnot. Even the title track in this game fucking rips.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, the menu felt like a warning when I started. I'm like, man, I don't know if I should be playing this. This just felt like ominous and felt very just like bad, like it's coming, like danger's coming.
Like
and I
a
was
big
like,
crescendo, and you're
and like, okay, hit play. Here we go. See what happens.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's been phenomenal. It's great, like mood setting. It's like a serotonin moment when you do beat a boss and you kind of get back to that normal, like, okay, this is my area now and stuff. But yeah, well, or sometimes it's just like there's maybe a lack of the score, which is good. Like if it quiets down a little, and that's great, So it's so far I haven't anything that I've heard it's fit or it's been overly good. Nothing stood up like didn't really like that, or kind of done that. So no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Score has been very good so far.
I guess I don't know if there's too much to say about the story, because I feel like early on, at least everyone's gonna have a different path to this game, of course, but there is a couple things that do feel like they are guiding you along, maybe more than other Souls games, with a certain character, and then you meet another kind of witch character at one point, and it felt like it was going to be a bigger, more like recurring thing, but I feel like I haven't seen a couple of those characters in a long time now, so I don't know if there's much to say. I think once Travis mentioned that it's just a lot of lore and world building, and that's all I need, or that's all I expect in a Souls game at this point, or in a From Software game at this point. I like all that stuff, and I am curious to see where some of the main story stuff goes, because there definitely is some sort of thread that you're following along. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, I don't even know where my main story goes at this point. Like I have so many areas I can explore. I don't really know which one I'm supposed to do, quote unquote. Obviously, you're not supposed to do anything. It's supposed to be open, but I don't know. Do you guys have anything to add on the story elements?
No, for me, just because, like I said, I haven't advanced it too much, and just because I think I had maybe whoever she is, Melinda or Melina, whatever her name is, I feel like she kind of now in retrospect kind of told me to get back on track for a little bit of like, oh, there's something over here you should go look at, but I was like, nah, I'm good, Melinda. Like I'll see you later. So yeah, I think again that helps with this world, because there's not that I never feel like I'm kind of ignoring something or putting something off. Like so far, all I've done pretty much, especially now talking to you guys, is what you would classify as like side quest stuff or exploring. But to me, that's been my journey, right? Like I had this mini story of I went through a lot of Limgrave, and not the actual path of where you're starting to go to the main mission. I went the exact opposite direction. Bumped into a lot of bosses just randomly in caves or on the side, kind of got beat by some, got to the other end of it, and then on my way back kind of systematically beat the shit out of them and won. So it's like that, like I guess my area is kind of like my story is I'm taking back just little by little, I'm taking the map back, and just because there's so much in each area, so with main story I'm not expecting too much. You're a tarnish that's come back to kind of reclaim your glory. So we'll see what happens. But all the lore stuff's good. So that's what I like too. If that stuff was not that that's needed, but that's a little share of like, okay, the story's not something in depth. It's not Last of Us. It's not like something that I did have with Knights of the Old Republic, or even Witcher. Witcher is a big game, but it has main story beats that are very cinematic. Like that's why there's a show, right? Like you have multiple characters, multiple storylines, multiple like love interests. Where this is just, to me, it's like you're liberating this place that's a lot of bad shit's happening. That works for me with this game because it's making me explore it more and kind of creating my own story.
The storyline, it's not so much like the progression that you're doing. It's your discovery of what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And kind of like what's happened to the main bosses or the main characters or whatever it is. And that usually it's, I don't know about this game because I'm not very far, but usually it's not given to you. It's like you read an item description and it'll tell you like what the last boss was in his previous life or something. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's one boss after Margit, and just the lore of that is so just disturbing. It's also like built up to it with characters talking about this character before you actually encounter them, and then you have to go through this whole long section to actually get to the boss, and it's great. It like they've done it before. They do it again. I love how silly some of their bosses are too. Like I remember Dark Souls, there's just a boss called Ceaseless Discharge, and it's just this giant red
What the
beast. It's like I just love that shit. It's so stupid, but it's so great.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to know what George R.R. Martin did in this game.
I imagine just the lore, because like you look at Game of Thrones, those are dense books and story, and that's all about here's the Night Watch and here's everything.
I just feel like
you
a lot
know.
of the lore in this game is just like the same as Dark Souls, or like it seems like similar vibes for a lot of things. And obviously there is like new characters and whatnot, but I would be curious to hear, once I'm done with the game, like read some interviews or something, just kind of see what that relationship was like for the game. Because obviously it's a great advertising thing, but I wonder how far beyond it went that.
I was talking to my buddy about this, like what George did specifically, and I don't know where he got this information, but he said he my
favorite source.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, bro.
I trust him.
That's the best source. Trust me, bro. I know.
He said he wrote it like the main overarching like characters and the stories, like a long time ago, and he just didn't know what kind of like where it would be utilized. And then I don't know how he like joined up with FromSoft.
Yeah.
But,
okay, that's kind of that happens a lot in Hollywood, where Die Hard 2, for example, was actually not written as Die Hard 2, or sorry, Die Hard 3, but then someone got the script and like, oh, this would really work as a Die Hard movie, so they changed things. So it's probably something similar to that. Like he always had these ideas, and like, hey, like you could put him here and kind of tweak some ideas. So that happens tons in Hollywood, where people have scripts sitting around. They're like, hey, if you call it, cop fights bad guy, it's not gonna do, but if you call Die Hard 3, you could get this movie made. Like I guess it's Bruce Willis now, so
it's interesting because it's so like this doesn't feel like it feels like a Dark Souls game with maybe George had input. So it'd be really interesting if it was like it started out as George's vision and they turned it into this, because it feels such like an original Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's true. I think for me the intriguing thing is the characters, like obviously the bosses, but also like those two characters that we just talked about that you kind of encounter early on. Like I'm intrigued by them. I want to know more about their story. Or when you go to the round table area, like just hearing the backstory, talking to the smith there, like that's an interesting guy who's kind of trippy. There's this one character out in the open world. I don't know if you guys have found this guy, but he's just a giant. I don't know if you've encountered any of those giant pots. Like it just looks like a giant pot is what the enemy is, and it has arms and legs, of course.
No.
And
I've got the guy who has balls for a bell, or bell for a balls, but not,
Sorry, what?
There's like the big creature that walks around.
Oh, yeah, that thing. In the loading screen, they show that too.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with those. I feel like they're important in some way, but I have seen a couple of them, and I didn't really know how to interact with them, I'll say. But anyway, it's just this giant pot, and it started out as me walking along the trail, and then I hear this guy. He's like, "Help! Anyone out there? Do you hear me?" I'm like, "What the hell is that?" So, and thankfully I had these headphones on, so I could like find where he is with the 3D audio, whatever. And so I cruise around. I eventually find him. It's just this giant pot that's normally an enemy, and he's just like wedged in the ground. And he's like, "Hey, can you help get me out of here?" And he's like, yeah, just hit me with a nice hearty attack. I'm like, that's my specialty. I take out the executioner's axe. I give him a couple slashes. He's like, not good enough. So I'm like, okay, I rip a heavy attack, charge it up full, hit him, he pops out, and then I just have a nice conversation with him. And it's just that that stands out to me. Just these weird little characters that you encounter. This other like almost like a bounty hunter guy, and he's like, "Hey, I gotta go do some other shit. Do you mind like taking over these bounties for me?" And like, here's this dude. He'll pay you. Like, pretty much just sets you up on this side quest. But like, yeah, there's no quest marker. It doesn't tell you where to go. Really, it just kind of gives you a little bit of info, and it's those kind of things that I'm really into. I like those zany, weird characters that exist in this world, and a couple of them, you never really know if it's an enemy or if it's like a friendly who's ready to talk to you. So you got to make sure you find out before you hit them, because then if you kill them, they might just be gone for good, and that's what the game's all about.
Well, like something like that just happened to me just today when I was playing. It's in the side area, kind of right by that castle that you were talking about, and it's like out on the beach, and it's in a like a poison swamp.
Okay.
But right in the middle of the poison swamp is like one of those staircases leading underground. So I went in there, and there's just this like woman chained up, and it's like a torture chamber, and I'm trying to talk to her, and she's just like screaming, and I'm just like trying to figure out how to get her out. So I try to hit her a few times, and she's like, "Demon!" And she's like shooting spells at me, and I like run away because I think it's an NPC, and I'm just like, I don't want to kill her because she's probably important at some point, but like I don't know how to get her out.
That's amazing. Do you guys have any other topics or notes that you wanted to talk about here? I mean, there's more I could say, but I really just don't want to spoil things for you guys. And even it's funny, like, even though I have more time than you guys, obviously there's still things you've encountered that I haven't seen yet. Like, I want to go find this lady who's getting tortured and see what's up with her.
It's in the south.
Or I got to go fight that knight on the bridge. And that's what's exciting. But now that we've done this too, like, I'm excited to actually talk to you guys about the game, because I wanted to hold back our thoughts until we did the podcast. But now we're gonna use each other as wikis. Like, here, go do this thing. Here, I found a really good staff here, Travis. When you want to do some magic, I have a couple places I know that can get a nice staff if you want. So I'm excited to have those conversations. And it is a very social game, weirdly. Obviously, there's the co-op, but even just as a single player experience, these games have always been a very social thing. At least I've seen them that way. So it's exciting, and the conversation's going to keep going. But any other topics or thoughts from you guys today?
No, I hit all the notes or stories I had to say, other than, Dylan informed me after I chose Bandit that bows suck in this game, so I was happy about that.
Well, I used one in Dark Souls. I'm like, this feels awful. I'm not using this.
It doesn't feel the greatest, but I did eventually get a crossbow, and that's pretty good. Once you can target on someone and shoot, that's a good, like, okay, take a couple damage off someone, or if there's weaker enemies and then you just want to take a couple off. But yeah, that's not it's not the greatest. And plus, I had to learn when you have the crossbow, you can have two different types of arrows. So at one point I was out of the left box when I kept hitting like left trigger. I'm like, why won't it shoot any of these? And I got destroyed. And they're like, okay, one's left trigger and one's left bumper and stuff like that. So I haven't sold my original bow and arrow for cinematic or sentimental reasons, but I might eventually here soon, because I'm not really I'm just using the crossbow, which has worked good enough. So I have to switch between that and my turtle shield, which I love. My turtle shield turtle shield has this boost where it has this thing where like it turns it all white, and I don't think it's all the time, but it's worked even on a few bosses that I fought, that even one hit, like, it doesn't do any damage to you. It takes your stamina, but no matter the boss, you get one hit and then you're fine, and it kind of staggers them. So there was a couple bosses that I think I was leveled enough to beat, but it felt were a little easier, because when I could stagger them, I kind of get 2 quick hits in, and once I get the 2 quick attacks, and I do heavy attacks, but the quick attack is that's my bread and butter with the sword I have currently right now, because one big attack might be 250, but if I can get a 98, a 126, and then a 200, it's like, why wouldn't I do the quick attack?
Numbers,
So, but no, I'm loving it, and I can't wait to. There's a bunch of things that after I'm done this review, I can't wait to go look into, and now I might venture that way to the main quest, but right now I'm just in a little area that, like, okay, I want to see what's going on here, and because I'm, like I said, I got one more boss in this area that kind of messed me up that I do want to kind of take out. Then once that's out, I think I will do some more exploring, but I want to clear some people.
Cyrus, anything you would like to chat about?
No, I mean, I wanted to play as much as I possibly could, just to have. I knew I wasn't going to get far, just because I never take these games quickly. But No, nothing more new to add. I'm just really excited to see these castles that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, like I said, this I don't know. I need to talk more about this game. I want to do more content on it. So next week we'll be talking about on side quest. Might do like a more of a deep spoiler cast when I've completed the game. I remember back after doing Dark Souls 3, I did a stream and made a boss tier list, just like my favorite bosses. So I'd like to do that for this game. That'd probably be a long one considering how many bosses.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like I've already fought more bosses than all of Dark Souls 3. So yeah, I think there's a lot to do there. So yeah, expect more content on this game. Hopefully, everyone out there listening enjoys the game, so you're going to get more of it. So be prepared for that. But yeah, if you have any more topics, thoughts, things you'd like to hear us talk about, send it my way because I will include it in some of these future Elden Ring discussions. And yeah, I think this game will be talked about all year, and I think for years to come.
Oh,
It
yeah.
seems like one of those kinds of games that obviously around like Game of the Year season, like it's going to be brought up a lot. But I think this is one that's going to kind of persist past. Even past that, I'll talk about for years.
100%.
And who knows? I mean, they've done DLC for. Well, I guess they didn't do it for Sekiro. That was maybe the one game they didn't do DLC for. Hey,
Right. Yeah.
so who knows what they'll do with an open world experience like this? But yeah, I mean, for all the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne, they did DLC. So who knows?
Yeah,
But anyway,
I
it's
think
exciting.
I think like you said, we talked about a few times, people are going to use this as a touchstone for games down the line. They're gonna use this the same way when people talk like, oh, this is like Breath of the Wild. The same way when I go like, oh, this reminds me of Knights of the Republic. It's gonna be one of those games in 5 to 10 years where it's like, oh, it's like Elden, like, and that's a good thing. That's the best thing you can have, you know. Or even like to a lesser extent, that like how many people did that dealing with Spider-Man, where it's like, oh, it's a lot like Batman. You know, like when you can be that game where it's like, oh, it's like this. That's one of the biggest compliments you can get because you're a trendsetter. And really, like, obviously, there's tons of Game of the Year awards, but like the one with Keeley and everything, I hate to say it. I know it's only March, but I feel like it's done. I feel like it's like I don't see any game coming out this year that is gonna approach. And I know Breath of the Wild 2 might be coming up, but this to me just feels like it just. You know, and I'm somebody on the lower tier of that game, but I still think it's a great game. I understand the praise it gets, but this just feels like such a different level. It's one of those like, I just don't know what can compete with it really. I know there's even like a God of War, but it's one of those games that luckily we're early in a decade, but it's like one of those like best of the decade type of games, and I can't wait. And yeah, when I come back in a month or so on my next episode, we'll talk more about it because yeah, I do gotta finish Horizon, but it's been tough because before I was having
Did
tough.
you finish that main story yet? By the way?
No, because I got this and I wanted to, but I will. My goal is I'm going to finish it before I'm on side quest next, but it's just, I wasn't feeling the pull. And now with this game, like all my pull is with this. Like I had other games that I was going to maybe purchase coming up in March, like a wrestling game. Like, no, I won't even look at it. Like I'm going to wait because I want to be in this world a lot more anytime. And that's a good thing I should have said too. Like you can have, I wish the Xbox or PlayStation had like a Switch equivalent, because this is a game literally you could just, I know it sounds weird, but you could plug in for half an hour and just do a few little things like explore, like I said, farm for runes and stuff like that. Or you could go in there like, I'm going to have a 5-hour experience. There's some games where, okay, when you plug in, you have to have, like, you got to be in here for a bit. This game's not like that. I could play it for an hour, do some things, okay, save, be done with it. And that's why I love that it kind of scratches that itch where it's not a game like, oh, I have to set aside 5 hours. No, if I got half an hour, okay, I'm going to go try. Even if I can't fight this boss, maybe I'll discover him, mark him, come back later. You know, like there's always something to do, which is it's a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully, next time you are here, we can talk about the co-op because I think by then
Yes,
we'll
I
have
do
had a
wanna try
chance
it, yeah.
to play it. Hopefully, it'll be playable. Within the next few days. Hopefully, it shouldn't take that long, and then we can actually do some of that as well, which is another like built-in difficulty thing. You know, like you may not have an easy mode, but if you just bring a buddy and help you fuck up this boss, that can help you if you're stuck somewhere too. So
Yeah.
all right,
Yep.
this was fun, Sarah. Thank you. What was your first podcast experience like? Are you liking it? Are you wanting to do more? Or are you like, that's a lot too much talking for me? I want to.
No, I love it. As long as I, can talk about the topic.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It's great.
Awesome. Well, we'll have you back, maybe to talk more about Elden Ring, but if not, other games and whatnot in the future. Okay, that was a fun one. I'm excited for more about this game. Join us next week for Triangle Strategy. Join us later this week for the Batman review. That's gonna be a fun one. And we're gonna have some good times here on SideQuest. I don't know exactly what the week after the next week is, but then pretty much everything else in March I have lined up. So I'll announce that stuff soon enough of what you can expect for the month. But so many games. April's now stacked. June is stacked. It's a good time for video games. So we'll see you next week. Everyone have a good one. See you next time.